Yo, yo, yo.
Hello.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 94 of Heelanhammer. On today's show, we forgo our usual format as we talk about another event that myself and Wayne have attended, and we have a special guest on the show who'll be introduced shortly. All this and more on today's Heelanhammer. There you go, look. Wayne's
just sound like tumbleweed.
It's brilliant. It takes me ages to do that. I work on my
bit mad
chest capacity. So, hello everybody. Welcome to another show, and I want to do a massive Heelanhammer welcome. First time on the show to hashtag Posh Mike. How's it going, Mike?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate.
Yeah, good. Now, Mike's first time on the show. We're calling him Posh Mike, but it's a nickname that Wayne invented over the weekend. Mike is, in fact, you are going to be listening to this thinking he doesn't sound very posh, and he actually isn't.
What are you saying?
It seems to have
He's
stuck.
enjoying being Posh Mike.
We have a discussion.
He likes it.
He does. So it's now hashtag Posh Mike. We've got this hashtag Fuck Craig for those of you who follow UK scene people, and this is hashtag Posh Mike, which, funny enough, was given to him actually by the poshest person we know, and that is Simon Hyatt, or
yes.
Simon of Howarth, as the listeners will know. He's about the most well-spoken gent we know, and he decided he branded Mike
Simon, isn't it? Because he doesn't come from a posh background as such. But he just came out posh.
Yeah, so there you go.
He's a posh person.
There you go. Me and Wayne hang around with all these posh people. You'd think it would rub off, but sadly it doesn't. So let's get straight into the show. So we are sponsored, as usual, by Og Games. Now, we've said before on the show, they have stopped selling Games Workshop stock due to the trading conditions at current, but they do sell a load of stuff that is still very, very good for all your gaming needs. The main one is magnets. It's a no-brainer for everything you need. Flexometal, magnetic sheeting, perfect fit rare earth magnets, so you don't have to, green stuff and whatever. They just fit exactly in the depth of a normal Games Workshop base. And if you've looked, you will find you can get them all over the place. But if you just want straight, simple, go and buy it, that's the place to go. Beer and Pretzel Games, they sell the perfect games to wind down after a game's battering. If you've just played at the Blood and Glory tournament like we have, and you've had a sad day, it can be quite nice to just sit down and play a board game in the evening. I know quite a few people did at this particular one, be it Magic the Gathering or any multiplayer board game, Chaos in the Old World. There's a couple of brilliant ones I saw at the weekend that were all sort of fun-based, so check all those out. And they're all around 15% off and can take anywhere from about 30 minutes to 3 hours to play, and different levels of players, so tons of stuff.
X-Wing seems to be really popular at the moment, doesn't it?
It does, very popular. And of course, paints and brushes. They've obviously got a lot of Games Workshop brushes and paints left, so if you want those, get on there. We're not massive users of Games Workshop brushes ourselves, but they do have a place for, dry brushing and the like. They do. I mean, I still use Games Workshop dry brushes just out of habit. I quite like them, so there's tons of stuff you can still get there. And of course, they're in the they're looking at Army Painter range of undercoats, Vallejo, Winsor Newton brushes, that Revell plastic glue that I've got sitting in front of me that is probably the best plastic glue on the market, all that kind of stuff. So just check those out. They do loads of good prices on that. And of course, the best place to keep up to date with it is the best place to keep up to date with anything, which is Twitter. So make sure you get on Twitter if you're not already and follow at Og Games. That should be about it for now. So the only other thing to note is, if you want even more cheaper prices and a bit of money off, if you spend £35 or more, you save an additional 5% if you use the code during October, Heelantober. So that's Heelan, Heelantober, Heelantober. There we go. Straight into it.
Coming to you live from Portsmouth, this is the Heelanhammer Network News.
Okay, so the news. Well, White Dwarf hasn't come out at the time of recording, but there is some news surfacing all over the internet and causing a bit of an uproar, and it is, drum roll, Dark Elves. How are we feeling about this then, boys? Looking forward to it, Mike?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it a lot, actually. I've seen a few of the pictures of the new models, and I really think they've got a lot of opportunities for conversions and a lot of nice new looking models. And it looks like they've actually released a lot more than some of the other. I've seen there's quite a few new plastic kits around. It's definitely one where if I get a bit of money or maybe Christmas presents, it might be a good start for me.
Good. And Wayne, you're quite interested in this.
Initially very interested. I'm just having major hobby bobs because I'm just about to have the funds to go and buy pretty much what I want in the hobby, and I'm thinking about actually buying all new paints, brushes, like literally binning everything I've got and starting from scratch, and just because I've got a really old paint set and just starting again, and I could buy a new army. And I don't know. I'm having a bit of a hobby wobble. They haven't even been released yet. I'm having a hobby wobble over Dark Elves.
No, I mean, we should clarify this reason me and Mike are laughing is we spent the Blood and Glory tournament, which is the main topic of today's show, talking about what you wanted to do. Yeah, I'm going to be all full of Dark Elves when I get home, and it lasted a day, and then you brought around a Demon Prince a minute ago, so which we'll talk about at the end of the show. I'm still on our Beardy Weedy Week. So, yeah, Dark Elves. So we've got, at the moment, there was a big list of stuff which people were looking at that seemed like there was a hell of a lot of stuff coming out, but the only photos that I've seen is like an assassin, a high Hydra, and like a multi-part. I saw the Spearman and which are also crossbowmen, and a multi-part kit of like a shrine
and the witch elves.
Yeah, the witch elves.
Are they the skirmishing? There's the Sisters of. Is it Torment or something?
Yeah,
like that?
yeah.
There's skirmishing ones as well. They look quite good.
Yeah, and for me, initial thoughts would be I don't really like the Hydra, but I do like the other Dark Elf stuff, really. I think that the models look excellent. I really like the Spearmen and stuff. They look much more in proportion, so I haven't got the big fug hands that the current ones have.
They look like, the old metal ones? They look like a sort of crisper version of the old metal ones.
Yeah.
I think they're really nice.
Yeah, and my favourite model, because we've said it loads of times on the show, one of my two favourite themes, the whole nautical sort of lost SeaWorld type thing, is there's that witch elf on that shrine. That looks amazing. Well, not witch elf, but like that kind of sort of sea creature.
It's quite Atlantean, isn't it?
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Blood rack or something.
Blood rack throne or something.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike plays World of Warcraft the same as me, but I was thinking like Naga type.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
What they look like. They do look quite cool. So I really like those. They just look really, really good. Really good. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of it if there is more.
So we heard sort of rumours, didn't we, that there was going to be sort of Executioner's stroke Blackguard kit for both. And no one's seen any pictures of that. And also a chariot, which doubles up as something else. And also Black Riders, which doubles up as warlocks. I haven't seen any pictures for that. So
I guess we could be waiting on a wave 2 for that, though. I mean, it's perfectly possible down the line there'll be another release of plastic models, because they did say that this was going to be one of the biggest overhauls they've done in many years.
Yeah,
this
is true. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. But initial thoughts. We don't know anything about the rules or anything else, but the models look really nice.
The Hydra heads are the teeth. You seen the teeth on them?
No.
Oh, they look well bad. They look so I don't know if it's the paint job, but they just look like they got their whole teeth is full of, like in a sort of cartoon, and someone puts false teeth in and they're like really big and they're all flat. It just looks like that. It just looks really weird.
Yeah, I don't know about the Hydra. I don't want to comment on necessarily who may or may not have sculpted it. I'm sure Wayne will have some opinion. But
do you know who sculpted it?
No, I can guess. But apart from that one, and again,
but the Kraken heads look good.
That's what I say. If you chop the lower half of the body off, I just don't like the way it's sitting. It doesn't look like it's sitting on anything. It's like a weird sort of like it's almost wrapped round, but it's not, is it? It's sort of. I don't know. Yeah,
it's kind of like it's on its sort of belly. I'm not sure, but I bet it looks really good in the flesh.
I bet you can do something really good with repositioning that with a bit of green
I've
stuff.
I've already got an idea. I'm going to change. If I do it, I've got an idea that's going to look awesome for that. Change it. Well, not change it completely, but there's something you can do to that will make it look really cool.
When I saw the models, I was like, because I like the high elf models, but I've never really. There's something about the dark elves I couldn't get on board with, but these new models just look slick. So
they do look very nice.
Especially, I don't know. I fancy. Can you imagine how expensive it'd be? But I kind of fancy an army. Don't know what army where you use that blood rack, like
because witch elves are core now, aren't they?
Oh, so there's rumours say, but I'm not sure on that. It sounds odd, but maybe they are. Maybe they are. I suppose if you were doing a K-Knight army, it would make sense. But there's lots of things coming out. So we won't speculate too much on the rumours. We've got a lot to cover today. But initial looks at the actual release look like it could be pretty good. So by the time you hear this, you'll probably know, because I'd imagine White Dwarf will be out a couple of days from recording this. So you'll know more than we do. But keep an eye out. Dark Elves. So as I said, we are going away again. It seems like we've been show after show of moving slightly away from our little segmented format, and it's just because of the amount of events we're attending, really. And this one's no different. So straight into the topic. So we attended the Blood and Glory tournament over in sunny Derby, and it was pretty sunny, wasn't it, overall?
It was lovely,
it was
lovely
bad,
so it was myself, Wayne, and hashtag Posh Mike who attended. We travelled up together, stayed in a nice hotel in Derby that happened to be right next to a beefeatery type. I don't know if you've got them in other parts of the world, but they're kind of like chain restaurants, like franchisey type things, and you get pretty okay food. So that was reasonably priced, and we had a couple of meals in there. So nice place. And the actual links, I've only been to Derby once, and that was for the Masters in 2010, I think. And I didn't stay in there, so I never really explored the place. But actually, as a place, it was okay. I thought there was a lot of stuff within driving distance and walking distance of the venue. Now, the venue was a how do you pronounce it, Wayne?
Masonic
Lodge, a cult building or something, wasn't it? But
building.
I don't know how you pronounce it. Someone said there's a temple or something in it. My instant thing was sacrificing virgins, but
the Masons don't do that, mate.
No, probably not. They're probably going to come.
You didn't even know what a Mason was, did you? Until you got there.
No,
you lead us sheltered life.
It's good, isn't it? I find wargaming. You get educated, like where Ireland is.
I can actually see you in the future being a Mason.
Yeah?
Yeah, with all this, like, you being an accountant and, rubbing shoulders with lawyers and all this. And at some point, you're going to meet someone, you're going to have the secret handshake and, one trouser leg up. And you're going to do all that. I could just see you doing all that, man.
Sounds like a plan to me. If you want to get in contact down at Heelan, no. So we went there. Really nice place. I mean, it was basically down as a banqueting hall, wasn't it? And it was, it was kind of like, reminds me of a bit of a golf club bar, really, that kind of thing, wasn't it? It opens out on a patio. Very open, and it was kind of like a big square that went round. It was like a just one massive corridor in a way, and you had the top tables, say top 20 odd tables in the main room, and then the bar, and then the rest of the tables, and that was kind of the layout. Now this event was slightly different because it wanted more of like a convention-y type feel, I think, and they ran various different additional events. Listeners will have heard Ben Curry on the show talking about it, but these particular ones you could choose to enter or not. All three of us did the Warhammer 1200, which actually got a point for in the main event. So it was worth doing, but ultimately for us, I thought it worked out quite well because we always leave early, so we get up there around lunchtime, have a bit of lunch, play the 1200, and then we could go and have dinner and just chill in the evening. So that's what we did. So we played the 1200 points. They had some scenarios from the rulebook, which was Dawn Attack, was it? The first one? I'm just trying to remember what they were now.
Yeah, Dawn Attack.
Yeah, Dawn Attack, so it was a random deployment. There was the last one was Seize Ground, they called it, where you had to get the most fortitude points into the opponent's deployment zone, and the middle one was Blood and Glory, wasn't it?
We definitely had a Blood and Glory in there because there was a big cheer for that one.
Yeah, there was. At 1200 points, Blood and Glory is a bit risque, but it was good fun, that. So let's get into it. So for my 1200 points, I will go first, as you know I can, and I had a Vampire Lord at 1200 points, which sounds nasty, but it really isn't. And I managed to game most of my opponents into thinking it had a lot of kit on it. But basically, I had a Vampire Lord on a horse with heavy armor, lance, and the charm shield. And that was it. He was level 2 on Law of Vampires. He had nothing else at all. But I think most people used to seeing that Vampire Lord sitting there in a bus and thinking, oh my God, he must be tasty. But he really wasn't. I had a White King, again, exactly the same thing, on a horse with the 2-up save kit and a Dragonbane gem, and I never knew that. Anyway, Dragonbane gem and a battle standard. And then I had 2 units of 20 zombies with banners and musician, 5 direwolves, 20 skellies with a banner and musician, and then I had 8 black knights with a standard musician, and lances, bardin, and a Terrorgeist, and that was my 1200 points, which I actually, when I wrote it, I thought this is going to be a bit junk. It was basically, I was stuck on models I had. I only had what I had in the box, and I thought, well, I'll just use this scaled down. But actually, it ended up being pretty good over the event. So I'll quickly run over mine. I'm keen not to do too much detail on these because I want to spend the time on the 2 400s. But so first game I played Martin Morin, who a lot of people will know. He's GW employee, really nice guy, and he turned up with they had What Would Curry Do t-shirts on, which listeners of podcasts will know Ben Curry quite well. He hosts a Bad Dice podcast, and he does a Bad Dice Daily where they do What Would Curry Do, and he talks about a list, and they all had little pictures of Ben Curry with speech bubbles with What Would Curry Do, and the idea was that they would all bring What Would Curry Do lists that they painted specifically for ones Ben had covered on the daily to the item, and a couple of them, I think, chickened out in the end and took their normal lists, but 2 of them did. And Martin had a scaled down version for the 1200. I think he was like the spare player, so he had a whole Zinch army. And I thought I was going to get absolutely smashed. I got halfway across the board, decided to push forward, and cascaded my Lord, who dodged a hole but blew all the knights up. But then him and his little friend, the White King, managed to get their way all through the rest of the opponent's army. And oddly, the best thing in all 3 games was rank and flanks. Banners and the zombies and the skeletons charging units with their resolution. So
you weren't sure about taking those, were you, at first?
No, I thought I might need them because of the scenarios. But then I actually remembered when you and me have played low point games before, and when we've played, was it a doubles tournament where we played? We won a doubles tournament, didn't we?
Yeah,
you and me
the Bracknell one.
Yeah. And I remember it then, ranks, units, and numbers, and just playing proper Warhammer with getting things in the flank and having a numerical advantage was a big thing at low points when you haven't got all the killer characters to hold things up, and that's exactly what it proved to be quite good. So I won that game, come back from the dead to get that one. I then played another vampire player in Blood and Glory, Chris, who you played in the main event, Wayne, so we'll talk later. Cracking guy. He was worried about the mismatch because it was a bit of a mismatch. He had like a foot vampire army, and there was nothing really to stop my bus just going in the front and killing his vampire because he had no real redirectors. So he went in the building and left his Terrorgeist on its own. So first turn I flew my Terrorgeist because it was in March and General range and screamed it off because it's only leadership 4 or something silly on its own. And that pretty much ended the game because I was able to kill everything outside of the building. and win that one. So that was that game. And then the last game I played Marcus Pitt, who had, I think, one of the best lists in the event, actually. And we never got to finish the game. The times were really super tight, and I understand why they were super tight, because they had a 500-point event running afterwards, and it needed to run to time. But yeah, it was really, really tight, and we only got to about turn 4, and it was get into your opponent's deployment zone. And it came down to, because we were running out of time, could he get a big enough distance? He needed 11 on an overrun to get his Saurus Old Blood and his unit in my deployment zone to call it a draw. And he didn't get it, and I just had a unit in his. But I think it would have come down right to the wire, because it would have come down to whether I could take the last wound off his skink battle standard with something. But really, really good game. But he had a filthy 1200, I thought. It looked quite balanced, and then he got the Old Blood in combat, and the Old Blood was like strength 8 with a 1-up save or something at 1200 points. I mean, that would demolish most things. So, yeah, he got into my deployment zone. He didn't quite get into my deployment zone and won that game as well. So that was 3 wins for the game. We'll talk about who won the event in a sec. We might as well talk about that now, actually. So the winner of the event was Tom Harris with Warriors of Chaos. And he had Demon Prince, as we're about to hear from Wayne's game, and a unit of Crushers and some bits and pieces, which was disgusting at 1200 points, I thought. Second was me, and third was, I think, went to Martin Moran in the end. I think my first round opponent, I think he just sneaked in there, but only 2 people won all 3 games, which in a 3-game event I find odd, but that is the way it happened, so that was good. And then let's move on to your games. Obviously, we know you weren't 1, 2, or 3, but there was some interesting battle between you, which we'll talk about. So, Wayne, what did you use?
I took the Skaven. I had obviously a small Skaven army. I had a unit of clan rats. I had we actually wrote the list in the car on the way up, didn't we? It was on the back of a receipt. It was the only bit of paper we could find. I was going to actually hand that in as my army list.
And it wasn't just any old receipt. It was actually you've got your normal like petrol receipt for buying fuel, and then you get a card receipt, which is a tiny little one, and you'd wrote it on the back of one of those tiny little ones.
It on there. I had 2 Walt Lightning Cannons, didn't I? 1200, I had 2 Walt Lightning Cannons. I had a unit of Clan Rats. I had a level 2 Warlock. I had a Lord based in his underpants. And then I had a couple of units of Slaves. Oh, what else did I have?
You had some Rat Ogres, didn't you wanted to keep, I believe?
Did I take... I can't remember. Oh, 8.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, 8 Rat Ogres, Took 8 Rat Ogres. That was pretty much it.
I think you had like a level 2 with a condenser and a...
Yeah, I did,
because neither you or I took a scroll, did we? We were Manhammer in it.
Yeah, I don't normally take a scroll anyway, but... So the first guy gets is Tom Harris with that...
The list that
filthy warrior list. It was horrible. A Nurgle Demon Prince, which... for the points value, you can't have... The only thing you can't have on him is the flying. And the model had wings, and he never told me it wasn't flying. Right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm pretty sure at one point in the game, I actually cast Howling Warp Gale on it to stop it. And he still didn't say it didn't fly.
Disclaimer at this point, we'd like to say the show represents the opinions only of the hosts individually. In no way does this express the opinions of the company and may contain inaccuracies. Carry on. Yeah.
So, so it was all of it. To be fair to Tom, he didn't, as far as I know, he didn't fly it. He moved it properly. He just let me cast the spell and at no point said that doesn't affect me because I don't fly.
He's my hero.
So it's kind of like
gamed the way.
Which I didn't. Because it was only when I was talking to some people after the game, and they said, "Oh, you won't get flying in on that point." I was just like, I don't know. I'm assuming he didn't fly because it literally he moved over first turn. The Rat Ogres failed a leadership test, had to charge it, so obviously that stopped my firing my warp cannons into it.
Yeah.
And then it just ate my army. I mean, literally that model on its own ate my army. Because he had a unit of Crushers, a couple of units of Marauder Cavalry. Yeah, it don't really matter what else.
Yeah, I was going to say it's only really down to the Demon Prince, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it was just filth. It was just that level. It's just like there was actually no point in playing the game.
Nice. I think. Do you know where I think you went wrong?
What?
Taking Rat Ogres. If they weren't there, you could have shot it in the face with 2 cannons and been like, Demon Prince, whatever. That's what it could have been like, but no. You had to go. You had one job, Wayne.
This is where you're going to blame me for you not winning, isn't it? Because I could have taken him down in the first.
Exactly.
Yeah, because he was actually, my list was the only list he was worried about playing, wasn't it? Because of the two cannons.
Yeah, I heard him discussing the event afterwards. He said, well, actually, he said you did have the tools to deal with it with the two cannons, but you just never got to use them. So, it's not a surprise. So what did you play in the second game then after losing that one?
Right, second game, I played Dave Sweeting. This was a great game. We played the whole, you have to get your fortitude in each other's deployment zones. Mm-hmm. At the end of the game, all that was left was about 4 fleeing Savage Orcs, which had actually fled because I'd charged them in the flank with a unit of slaves and won the combat, broke them. So my unit of slaves was there, this 4 or 5 Savage Orcs. I had, what was the other thing I had left? I had one more thing left. And he had a unit of 5 Wolf Riders with a banner, which ended in my deployment zone and won the game for him.
So you played the scenario and you didn't, is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. Well, I couldn't get across the table. No. I mean, because he had a wyvern, Lord on a wyvern, and I shot the wyvern off the first turn, and then at one point I didn't have, and it failed.
Didn't you shoot a Ragnarok as well or something? Or was
I blew that off the table with a cannon. I blew the wyvern off the table with a cannon. Yeah,
I remember this discussion because Wayne was telling me and Mikey in the bar or something. Oh, warlightning cannons are just rubbish. We're like, didn't you just shoot a Ragnarok and a wyvern? Yeah. Well.
Always scenarios. Excuse me. It's all about banners.
It is.
It's all about banners.
So he won with his 5 Wolf Riders.
He won with his four Wolf Riders, but it was a great game. It was proper carnage. There was just, he just killed the world. I mean, at one point, because his wyvern had rolled on the monster reaction table to basically stay by these, the fallen master and just guard him. I kind of left it alone. And at one point, I couldn't shoot anything else. So I just shot him off as well.
Nice.
So cannon that. So
sounds pretty good to me. So Wiley listeners will have noticed that was actually game 3 due to the scenario he was playing. But game 2, you played Ed Herzig.
No, it was game 2.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You're lying.
Because I played her.
You're lying. You're lying. So anyway, game 2, you played...
Did I really?
Yeah.
I'm sure that was game 2.
Trust, it was game 2.
Game 3 I played.
Dan's getting on game
Trust!
stronger.
Yes, Wayne! Yes!
You're dying to do that.
Yeah.
That was the running joke for the weekend, by the way. Dan coming up to me and acting like a gangster, which was
anyone who knows
very
me
funny
knows
in
how
itself.
street I am. I'm down with the kids.
Okay, and that was game 3. Game 2, Ed Herzig, Tomb Kings, big unit of snakes. I think we only got like 3 turns out of this at the most. It was literally, he ran the snakes forward. He tried to avoid the rat ogres, and nothing really happened.
No, he wasn't happy with you though, because he said you pulled a Dan move on me.
Oh, there's one bit where he was just about to get my kind of characters with this snake unit, and there was this. There's a warp flame. I took a warp flamethrower as well. There's a warp flamethrower, and I just moved it out of the way, and then there was a big enough gap for me to just march my unit just past his snakes
out of the arc.
Yeah. Just marched and passed it, and then he realised he wasn't going to get my characters. And his face is a picture, and I thought Dan would have been really proud of that.
yeah. Don't just push it in and hope. Just avoid it. I like it. So you ended up with 3 losses in the end.
I think the one against Ed was a draw because nothing really happened, and I lost the second game.
Yeah,
and sorry, Ed was the second game, wasn't it? So that was a draw. I lost against Dave, and I got smashed against Tom.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
So it was fun, though. I enjoyed it.
Good. We'll talk about how you found that bit in a sec. In extra. So, Mike, what did you use?
So I was taking Lizardman. It was I'd only had 2 games with the new book since it's been released.
Don't put your excuses up before you started.
No. I'm just saying. And so I wrote a list. I don't actually, being not in the hobby that long, I don't have that many extra models. So I kind of had to write a list with what I've got. I kind of built my list for the standard kind of comps that you see around, and I kind of had to make do with the models I've got. So for the 1200, I ran Teto Echo, which I thought was going to be a beast at this point level, but he ended up being a bit of a disappointment. It sounds like you get a lot for your money with him, but I think the problem is with him, he kind of brings the Comet, which is strong, but when everything's there's so few targets, it kind of isn't as effective almost. So I had Teto, I had a Scar Veteran who was tooled up like usual. 3 units of 10 skirmishers with javelins. They're absolutely awesome under the new book. I think everyone's seen that. 23 Saurus with a standard and musician, 3 pterodons, 1 bastillodon, and 2 units of salamanders. I think the list seemed okay in a normal environment, but as you'll see as a running theme through my games, I didn't particularly take the comp into account very much, and I think that was a bit of a schoolboy error throughout the whole event, and including the 2,400 points. So in this list, I was kind of running one banner and my general, and my general was a skink, so it was kind of difficult to play the scenarios really. And as you'll see in most of my games, they were kind of all in, and it either worked or it didn't. I didn't have much of a backup plan. So my first game was against Warriors of Chaos. I think the person's name was Ben Smith, a really nice guy. And he was running a pretty standard kind of Warriors of Chaos list, just skimmed down, so it had all the monstrous cav, and it had a unit of a night bus unit. Well, when I said bus, it was only about 6, but at this points level, it felt like it to me. So yeah, it was kind of good. We both sort of ran at each other because I realised sitting back I wasn't going to get anything, and he obviously was pushing forward as Warriors players seem to do at the moment, just kind of first turn march forward as quick as possible.
Push it forward.
Yeah. And it basically came to a point where I had the Scarvet and the Saurus charge into his monstrous cav, and it was all on that combat really, because we'd both had so many points put into those units. And unfortunately, I bounced a little bit, and I think I lost by 1. And when you haven't got the leadership of the slang kicking in, and your highest leadership is your Scar veteran, I failed it, and he ran me down. I think it was turn 1 or 2, and that was almost the game. That was after when you lose 23 Saurus and your Scar vet at this level. I mean, not only did I lose my entire fortitude, but I kind of that was it. And I was actually a good charge, I think, for me to take, and I was incredibly unlucky. And he said kind of that was unlucky, you should have taken me there, because I'd managed to block up his unit of knights and kind of remove the threats of getting countercharged. And so but that happens, you know. I didn't manage to get the magic off I needed that turn. The -1 to hit always helps, and yeah, so that game was over incredibly quickly, but it was nice because I got to I was on table 1 that game, and that's the only time I think I saw that room for the rest of the tournament, to be honest.
Nice.
My second game, a lovely guy again. He was brand new to the tournament scene. He was running VC. I think it was, he said, his first ever tournament. He brought a kind of a spam raise list. He had 3 blocks, I think. It was maybe 4 blocks. It was a big unit of Graveguard anyway, and that was really the big threat. And I think it had I think it might have had a baby vampire in there. It might not have done. It might have had a White King BSB maybe. He had a unit of zombies and I think a unit of skeletons, and then a small bunker at the back where he was keeping his kind of necro in. And so yeah, he kind of pushed forward on me. This game was a little bit one-sided, I think, as in I took out a lot of his stuff very quickly. I thinned the ranks quite heavily. There wasn't that much that could kind of keep up with me in combat, but in the end, I managed to win it by pinning him in the as you'll know, pinning in the rear and the flank. It kind of stops the raises from being able to happen and kick in, and so I just managed to grind him out that way. But again, I think due to the scenario, I didn't actually win that one again. I think I managed to get a draw or something similar. But again, my list, you've got to get the points in the right places. And that's a theme that I'm sure we'll touch on later, that the lists that all seem to do really well were not only the ones that had a lot of banners, but a lot of very high mobility, kind of also difficult to kill banners. And that was certainly something my list didn't have, with it being in the Saurus.
No.
And my last game was against Ed, who by that time was royally hammered.
Who ended up, as we're here, so Mike's played him, Wayne's played him, and it may be no surprise to know that I picked him up in the first game for 2,400. So we all had a go at Ed, didn't we, over the weekend? So
I mean, he was drunk when I played him in the second game. So God knows what state he was in by the time you played him.
Yeah, we come back in the. I come back on the Friday night, and anybody who knows Ed, he probably won't mind me saying he's an older member of the Warhammer
he's
community.
Kind of a Warhammer granddad, isn't he?
Yeah, you would have thought so.
Top bloke, though.
But he was like proper hammered when I come back on the Friday night when he was talking to me. So he's having a good time. So anyway, Mike, carry on.
He's really, really laid back, though. Really nice. I think he's actually quite a good player, but he was rocking the Tomb Kings, which is never going to be your best friend at one of these kind of tournaments when there's no comp involved. But again, that game... I absolutely smashed him on VPs by the end of it, because I managed to get is it the Hierophant that makes the army crumble? Yeah, I managed to get into that. So really the game, similar to game 1, turned into a big clash of the 2 blocks. He was running that snake unit that Wayne mentioned earlier, and I think he had 4 of them or so, and I charged in with the Scarvet and managed to do the wounds and got the wounds through that I needed, and fortunately he crumbled. Then after that I just kept pushing forward. This was the game where you had to get the fortitude into your opponent's deployment area. I kept pushing forward and eventually managed to get his Hierophant. His whole army was crumbling. He had the catapult, which was a really nice choice at this level, again because it causes panic, I think, when you're running low leadership, it's kind of a very scary prospect causing that panic.
The casket as well, didn't he?
Yeah, that's it. And so there was actually some really nasty toys, but luckily my pterodons were dealing with that. And so again, it came into this big combat. I managed to break him and overrun, but even though I smashed him completely on victory points, I just couldn't get the Saurus in my last turn over to the line. I think I was about 2 inches away from his deployment zone, which meant it was a draw, funnily enough, which looked really weird when you look down on the game. But yeah, I think that's just, you've got to play for the tournament you're at, and I should have just had a bit more mobility and some banners, and I would have been able to easily have pushed a couple of units of skinks on the side in, but I just didn't get that opportunity. And yeah, even though I got the extra points that you can pick up for winning your game and for getting double your opponent's victory points, it just ended up being a draw. But Ed was a lovely opponent to play. He took it all graciously, and we had a good laugh doing it. And yeah, so it was a really good finish to the day, to be honest.
Good. And we should say that although the tournament, for the main event, we had to submit our lists, and without knowing what the scenarios were, the 1200 we could submit on the day. So we actually did know what the scenarios were, but none of us really designed our list specifically for the 1200, did we really? We just sort of just wrote it up. All 3 of us pretty much wrote it in the car on the way up out of the model collection we had with us. But I think it
was a very relaxed attitude to the whole thing, wasn't it? Which was good, actually. It was good.
It was. And it was odd because, you two have just spoken about games there, and you actually didn't do that badly. But as it turns out, you still did the worst in the 1200 event, didn't you? Basically, Wayne had the lowest battle points by about 5 or 6 points, but lucked out on the soft scores and didn't come last, which is good. And managed to pick up some several painting trophies, didn't you, in the end?
Yeah, one of the trophies, it was I got third place sportsman, second place player's choice, or best appearance as they called it, and then first place judge's choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a good for a small event. It was great. Yeah, picking up 3 trophies like that, I was quite surprised actually.
Definitely.
It was great.
So yeah, you picked up some great, and the prize support for that was ridiculous, wasn't it? For a 1200-point event, it was really, really good.
Yeah.
So kudos to the organisers. Actually, a few people I think turned their eyebrows up at the cost of entry to the side events, but if you looked at the prize support and they had so many trophies.
Yeah, definitely.
It was really good. And best in race certificates for everyone.
Yeah, we should say best in race. I mean, actually, I think there was only.
Oh yeah, I won best Skaven as well.
You did win. Best Skaven.
Let's not mention the fact that I was the only Skaven player.
I think there was about 4 that were the only Skaven players in 4 races, I think, or something like that only had one particular army. It was actually pretty good turnout. I think it was about 15 to 18 people for a midday on a Friday. It was a pretty good going.
Yeah.
And Mike, unfortunately, technically got announced the lowest thing, but the lowest person.
What do you mean technically?
Well, I'll tell you why it's technically. Because as we're here in the main event, all the prizes in the main event, so best in races, the top 3 places, everything to do with the actual where you finished was only done on battle points. But oddly,
see, I thought that.
Which we talk about. I don't think that was great, right. And we'll talk about that later.
That was wrong.
And I've spoke to Ben about this today, actually. We'll talk about that. But oddly, in this one, they decided to give the bottom place to the person who was bottom overall, which was Mike, but it should have been you on that point.
But the last place prize was that, Annie had done one of those the spoon covers and all that. And I was thinking, I actually looked at it and thought, he's just robbed me. And I was
so I
like that.
I got one of those. Dice Bag Annie, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of her and seen her work. She did me a wooden spoon with I think it's a crocheted outside with a blood and glory,
spoon, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's fine. I didn't mind getting that. It was such I saw by the end of it that I hadn't written my list for it really, and it was no big surprise to me really. But and as well, when you're up to 2 a.m. the morning of the tournament, still painting your army, it's no surprise that my soft scores weren't that great. I think everything was just sort of base coated and washed, and it was all a bit of a hurry, especially with the new Lizard book coming out, and I was painting Bastillodons and Ripperdactyls, etc. I just didn't have the time that I wanted to put the right finish on the army, mainly because it was the last released book, and I just and it takes me a while to get through the stuff anyway. So I mean, that just sounds like an excuse, which it is. is, but
Yes, it does.
They all contribute. What you should be saying is they gave the wrong prize out. It should have gone to Wayne. There you go.
It felt like the old days, when painting meant something.
It felt like the old
Wait,
days.
hang on. I would just like to say that Wayne did make a display board for Dan, and I wasn't as lucky.
Oh, look,
so,
look. They're all pouring out now, aren't they?
yeah. So
Yeah, we should
I was
say
done there.
A few people. There was a choice phrase going around on Twitter. It's hashtag display board rude word, and a few people asked me if I'd made one because they saw photos of my army on one. And I was like, actually, Wayne did. He phoned me up, and this is what true brothers do for each other. He phoned me up and he went, "What colour are your leaves on your base in?" I said brown. He goes, "I made you a display board." I was like, "Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, Wayne. Yes, Wayne. Yes, Wayne." And that was that, and that's the start of how that carried on. So
I got twice as much hassle, didn't I? Because it's not only was I a display board.
Hashtag,
I was doubly so for making two.
So yeah, that was good news. So yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for the point, Wayne. Didn't mean anything in the end, but we'll talk about that later on. But yeah, it was nice to have. It just about that was one of those battle foam ones that you can get. They're presumably for
Yeah,
travel.
I've had it a while. I got it off Brian Carmichael, and I've just had it in the shed for ages. So I thought it wasn't big enough to put my army on. And that's why I sort of made one. But I thought, yeah, it'd be perfect for yours. It was just the right size, wasn't it?
No, it was. So appreciated. So just quickly then, let's leave the 1,200 point event there. What do we think of the event, Mike? Any overall thoughts or feedback for this one?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I like the fact that the lists were kind of like left to the last minute as well, because it made you allowed to kind of sneak some things in there that you thought that people wouldn't kind of think of and try some different things. But in general, it all felt like it was run pretty smoothly and it was quite enjoyable. I quite liked the fact that it was so few players because you were all in quite a concentrated area. And you could kind of see everyone, and you could, and everyone was almost talking to everyone because it was possible at that many people. And you could see when people were doing badly or doing well, and you kind of had an idea about who you were going to be playing. I mean, me and Wayne both did terribly on the battle points, and I think at one point we were scheduled to play each other, but they kind of moved us around.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
because I wouldn't want to take Wayne off again, but.
Whatever. Wouldn't have mattered with my soft scores. Hey.
But no, it felt like it had a really good kind of community vibe with it because everyone had turned up there. Everyone had turned up early, so it was quite, there was still quite a lot of hype going at that point. It was the first kind of event to kick off because it happened before the 500 point event, and so yeah, it was just that really nice feel, really, of just getting there early and getting involved straight away, and everyone was still excited. So yeah, nice.
I'm a massive fan of being able to submit your list on the day. It's an old thing of the GT finals, where you can literally the night before you get there and you're still talking to people about it, and then you can submit in the morning. The biggest problem with it is in a wider thing. On a 1,200 point, it's fine when you've got 18 people. If we did it at the South Coast, I'd love to do it at the South Coast GT, but 200 people turning up with lists, about, I would say 30 to 40% of the people that submit lists to a South Coast GT are incorrect. Roughly in some way, shape or form. So can you imagine that on the day? And I think that's the problem, but it is so good. What about you, Wayne? How did you find it?
Yeah, I wish I just had a few more practice games at 1,200. I mean, I like the smaller point games anyway. I've always been a big fan. I like 1,500 points. So, yeah, I just played like a spanner. It was probably like I didn't put any thought into what I was doing. It was just push models forward, shoot. There was no kind of real kind of care in it whatsoever, and it showed, because I just got kicked all over. I mean, Dave Sweeten was the best game. Because that was to and fro, and it looked at one point he was going to sort of smash me because of the Savage was crushing, and then I managed to grind him off, and then literally last turn when that just 5 Wolf Rider just sort of like ran into the end zone, if you like, and won the game. But no, that was really, really good. Yeah, really good. I enjoyed it.
Good. And yeah, similar thing for me, really. I quite enjoyed it. It was just a nice way. And oddly, where I hadn't played the scenarios or the scoring system before, it was actually nice. It felt like getting a couple of practice games in where you just, you did get a couple of practice games effectively just at smaller points.
Yeah, that was the best thing. It felt like a warm-up before.
Yeah.
Because unlike what I usually do, I actually had a couple of practice games, didn't I, with my list. And then having those like smaller games beforehand, you kind of go in. For me, it's I know you get a lot of games in, but for me, it was kind of like I was actually knocking the cobwebs out before starting the tournament, which was great.
Yeah, I think it's massively important, and it did feel like a good little warm up. But as a points level, I quite like 1,200. I think again, like everything, if you're playing no comp, you're going to get some sillies, a Nurgle Demon Princes. Yeah. Fair play to him for taking it. If I'd been taking Warriors, I would have taken the same thing. But that's what you're going to get at 1,200, and that's why I didn't play the 500, is because from the games you and I played, Wayne, and Mike, you'd played 500 with us.
Yeah,
before,
I did. Yeah.
You have to self-comp, otherwise it's silly. Even the smallest item that doesn't seem broken at 500, at bigger points, is disgusting at 500.
Yeah.
Warp lightning condensers, as we both.
I
as
remember.
you both
Yeah,
know.
I remember.
Yeah, when I've used those.
There was some proper filth lists there. I think is it Dustin, the American guy there, who had the ogres list, and he was running the sort of 3 they saber tusks are they, and that was just smashing through everything. At that points level, it was just smashing through everything.
Mornfang.
Mornfang, sorry,
Yeah.
that's it. Not saber. They're rubbish. Yeah,
Well, no, they're still
Mornfang.
good.
Yeah, Mornfang, and they were just hammering through everything. And as Dan said, it was really good because even though you read the rules pack and you can see that so you got points for things like holding bits of terrain at the end of the game, etc., etc. It's kind of, even if you know that's the case, you're so used to not playing, to kind of capturing bits of terrain, etc., that it's difficult to actually play it when you come and play the game. So have 3 games to warm up, to kind of train your body to go for those bits of terrain, and train your gaming brain to kind of go for the right things, was really good. So it felt like when we rocked up the next day, game 1, it was like, I kind of know what I should be going for here, and where I should be going, and where the points are to be got, etc.
It did make you think differently, because it was kind of like the way you play a normal game was pretty much irrelevant to how you had to play this. The whole kind of, a lot of the time, actually killing your opponent's stuff was kind of pointless.
Yes, it was. As we'll talk about later, I'll give you a prime example of where I cost myself several tournament points. I'm sure I did over the event, 6 to 8, I would have said. So, anyway, that wraps up our look at the 1200. So yeah, we had trophies all round, didn't we? We were well happy. We had a woolen spoon. We had colour painting ones in a second place. So
happy days.
Everyone was happy. So with that, we'll have a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the main event.
Lately, things haven't been working out, have they? I mean, you must have noticed it. I mean, there was a time when me and you were wonderful together. We really were, but things are different now. It just doesn't seem to be the spark they used to be. And I think it's time we had a change, and maybe went our separate ways. And I've decided to collect Empire.
Okay, so the main event. So we rocked up after the Friday night, where we sort of went out, had a bit of food after the event, come back, did some socialising, and then went to bed. So that was about as exciting as it got, really.
We were going to do some recording, weren't we? But you'd left the recorder at the venue.
I did. This show was all going to be live from the venue, but instead it's live from Heelanhammer Studios today. So straight on to the Saturday, we rocked up for the Saturday morning. So we were playing 2-400. So let's go through it. Mike, what did you have in your 2-400 list?
Okay, so my 2,400 point list, I had a Slan with the 3 channels on a 5-up, which I think has quickly become a bit of a net build for a Slan. But yeah, I mean, it stands out. It's a really obvious build, and I think a lot of people are rocking it. And the Lawmaster on high. I had the Skink Priest, who's just a scroll caddy, and he was hoping to roll the Comet every now and again, but if not, he's always got that Ice Shard Blizzard. 2 Scarvets with pretty standard builds on, one with the glittering scales and Sword of Striking, so he's the -1 to hit, +1 to hit, which can be very tasty if you put it with an Ice Shard or something like that, or something that boosts his weapon skill. And 1 Scarvet, which is got the great weapon, Dawnstone, Light Armor, Dragon Helm, and that's really a tank that can hit really hard. I was also, a few people have done this, and this was a conclusion I came to myself with the book, actually, without looking on the net, is the Skink Chief on a Pterodon with the Ego Quango and a spear. So he's basically a massive glass cannon. I mean, you get the 2-up save on him through the Enchanted Shield and Light Armor, but the Ego Quango is an interesting one. It can either be an epic kind of blaze of glory, or he can kind of flump it a little bit. But he had a mixed bag this weekend, but it was good in the list. There's still the 3 units of 10 Skink Skirmishers with Javelins and Shields, the 20 Saurus Warriors with Musician and Standard, the 24 Temple Guard with Musician and Standard, 5 Chameleon Skinks. Still think they have the place in the new book for that scouting and hunting war machines. 2 Swarms, which didn't really do a lot, but I was kind of testing them out. To be honest, I treated this weekend a lot as a sort of a test of all the new things in the book. As I said, I only managed to get 2 games in before I came, so I was trying a lot of things. 3 Ripidactyls, 3 Pterodons, 1 Bastillodon, and 2 single Salamanders. So, yep.
Pretty good all-rounded list, I thought, from the new book. So I had vampires, which I always seem to roll out about this time of year to see if I can play them or not. This year I thought I'd I'd try and stick with it for the whole year. Whether that works out like that, I'm not sure. We'll find out. So, but I do enjoy using them. So we had a Vampire Lord in a bus, basically. So that's a Vampire Lord on a Barded Nightmare with Ogre Blade, 4-up ward save, Charm Shield, Potion of Speed, so he gets his rerolls from his Quick Blood, which is always strike first against things like Demon Princes if he wants to. Red Fury for the extra attacks, and that's about it. I don't think I missed anything. He was supported by Vampire Battle Standard on level 2 on Vampires. Didn't really cast with him unless I had to, but it was the second raise that I wanted. Dispel Scroll and 15 points of absolute win, by far the best item in the list. The other Trickster Shard and a Dispel Scroll and a Dragon Helm, sorry. And then I had a Necromancer also on a Barded Steed on death with Scroll of Shielding, Obsidian Amulet, and Obsidian Amulet is the MR Magic Resistance 2. Scroll of Shielding, if you haven't used it in combination with the Magic Resistance, is really, really good because obviously you get a 1-off 4+ save and then you get your Magic Resistance on top. So it's pretty good. Then moving into core, I had 2 units of 5 Direwolves with Doomwolves. Don't really know. The Doomwolves actually did do something in one game where I charged a Chaos Lord and was able to challenge him, and in range of my battle standard he basically had to do every hit and wound with everything, I think, to wipe it. And it was unlikely that it pinned him in place, so that was quite good. 2 units of 20 zombies with Banners and Musician, which actually was some of the best units I had in the army. 36 Crypt Ghouls, which didn't do a lot, but I wanted to try them. 3 units of 2 Fellbats, which is just absolute win. 12 Black Knights with a Flaming Banner, old school, Musician Standards and Champion. 1 Terrorgeist, and my 2010 choice, the Vargolf. So that was my list. What about you, Wayne?
I had a Grace here, who was my general. He had the Obsidian Lodestone and a Dispel Scroll and a Warpstone chunk. Then I had a Warlord on a Bonebreaker, heavy armour, shield, and a Fellblade, which was I was really looking forward to using that. So, and then I had a BSB with the Banner of the Under Empire, which 2 times over the weekend I would have got to use it. It wouldn't have made any difference to the combats, but I forgot about it.
2 times I would have got to use it.
Yeah, I would have got. I just forgot about it, but it wouldn't. To be fair, it wouldn't have made any difference.
Were you thinking, I wish I'd taken Dan's advice and the +1 leadership banner? You
No.
were, weren't you? You were.
No, not at all. Wish I'd taken the Storm Banner.
Oh, right, okay.
So
All that, yeah.
Yeah, Storm Banner's a
obviously.
good choice.
And then in core, I had a level 0 Warlock with a Doom Rocket.
Filth.
Yeah.
Wasn't quite the 5 15-point ones I
To
suggested.
be fair, in the
but-
current meta, he ain't all that because there's not a lot for him to shoot at. What?
I'm just doing the big sigh the internet and the listeners have just done. Anyway, carry on.
No, but it's true. I mean, in my
Okay.
case, there wasn't.
In fairness, I agree with you. Against the Warriors list and stuff is not
Yeah,
great.
there's, the armies in general, a lot, sort of big cavalry and small units. So anyway,
Pretty much why the Skaven aren't as dominating as they probably once were. So yeah, carry on.
yeah, I think it just comes as changing the build. Anyway, in core, I had a unit of Clan Rats, 27 Clan Rats with full commander and a Warp Firethrower. Then I had 36 Storm Vermin, full command with a Flamethrower. 2 units of 30 Slaves with Musicians. And then I had 2 big blocks of Giant Rats. So it was 25 Giant Rats, 4 Pack Masters, and a Master Molder to make it to 30 models. And then going into the special, I had 11 Rat Ogres with a Master Bread. Obviously, my Lord with the Bonebreaker went in there to make it to 12. 2 Warp Lightning Cannons. And that was it. That was my
pretty good
list.
to me.
I really like my list. It would have been nice for the level 0 to be a level 2. I think that a bit of extra magic would have gone a long way. And it was just different. It made a very different animal to play with that big block of Rat Ogres. And it, yeah. I mean, today you're right. In the current meta, playing against tournament armies, it's not all that, but it was a lot of fun. I did enjoy it.
Definitely, I think you could almost benefit from going on something like Swedish comp, or I don't know about Swedish comp, but something, where the idea is that the armies are a bit less good. Because I've seen you play your army and played against it, and I actually think it looks like quite a lot of good fun, but very, very punishing in terms of against some armies you just haven't got a chance, or you've got very little chance. So, but yeah, very, very interesting. So let's get on with it then. So, Mike, your first game, what did you play?
I think the first game was Skaven. I may have had the order slightly wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure the first one was Skaven. That was quite a good game. I was just really struggling to pick up points in this one. Again, it was the big blocks with the Skaven. He had a Screaming Bell and a Plague Furnace with all the standard things you would expect. The level 4 on the Bell, who was kind of casting 13th quite a lot. He basically ended up getting the Temple Guard by just kind of spam casting that 13th, which there's no comp obviously under this tournament, and so it was pretty rough for me. Having a kind of infantry heavy based army didn't help. And the Plague Furnace, that was pretty much the only points I got off the list in the end. I managed to take the A-bomb off as well, but it was kind of, other than those things, it was kind of a standard Skaven list. I managed to eventually pick up the Furnace with all the skinks and bits, because you can target out separately from the unit, and just tried to poison that down. My combat blocks did okay, but again, the ironically enough, as Lisman are so good at the magic phase, it's kind of I just got out magicked completely, and 13th was too much for me. And was it called Cloud of Corruption? Is it as well?
Yeah,
that ended up taking off so much army. It took off. I think
that's a great spell.
It does that on occasion.
That's the no armor save one, isn't it?
Yeah.
That just took the Scarvets off. Just took both of them off in one turn. And with my list, I feel that even though you've got the Temple Guard in there, who are hitting at strength 5 with 2 attacks each, it really still does feel like Scarvets are your only combat option almost, in a way. It feels like that's your punch, and once they got rid of them, it was kind of, there was no way I was getting through the army, and as I said, I still only in this list had 2 banners, so from my 1,200 point list, the only extra banner I gained was from the Temple Guard, which just wasn't enough, and with all those Skaven banners he was rocking, and the big blocks, I just couldn't get through it in time. So I think again in VPs it was reasonably even, I think around the draw, although he did take off the Temple Guard in the last turn, so maybe not, but again he smashed me on the objectives, to be honest. And I think I came out of that one with quite a heavy loss, which kind of suited me, because I went down to the bottom tables at that point and kind of could compete a bit more. So game 2, I had, I think it was Ogres then. It was an American guy who was running, just trying to think off the top of my head, Mornfang, a big unit of, who, this was the game actually where you deployed in a big diagonal. Mm-hmm. And you had to roll for each unit, and I think it was on a 1 the unit didn't turn up. Yeah, and I was quite lucky actually, because his Mornfang didn't turn up turn 1. And as you were deploying so close to each other, I basically abused a big bit of impassable in this game and blocked up. He had the big Iron Gut bus. He also had a big bus of bulls and the Stonehorn. And basically, because he had so much frontage and there was a good bit of impassable in the middle, I basically managed to funnel him to one small area where at best he was going to get 2 units in on me. Because we deployed so close, turn 1, I managed to get a charge off with the Scarvet into his Stonehorn, which managed to take him off and go through, which nice. I think that put a lot of his kind of plans to, especially with the Mornfang not being on the board then, kind of held him back quite a lot. So in the end, he did manage to get the Iron Gut into me a bit and take off some points, the Iron Gut Star. But it only went to turn 5, unfortunately. We finished off on a draw, actually. I think we were equal on terrain pieces, equal on objectives and everything like that. It kind of swung a bit more his way in the end. I would have had unfortunately we only managed to get to turn 5. I would have had a fantastic turn 6, which would have swung it for me. I had him where I wanted him, but unfortunately we just ran out of time. I think that was the problem. I think we had 2.5 hours for the rounds. Yeah, and that's the kind of tournament standard. But unfortunately, when there's so many new kind of things you've got to think about under the scenarios, you've got to think about the scenario itself, getting hold of all those terrain pieces, even the different deployment where you're having to, we had to draw a big diagonal across the table and you're deploying.
And setting up the scenery.
Yes,
set the
and
scenery
each game you were having to set up scenery. It really did pinch your time, actually, and that was one thing I struggled with over the weekend, making sure I got all my turns in. And as I said, it lost me out massively, that game, because I think I would have got the major objective win on that game if we'd managed to take it to a turn 6. But that game went okay. And then, so last game, or it might have been game 2, I was playing Annie, who Dicebag Annie, as most of the listeners will probably know, who's got her, I don't know how to describe her army. Her
Chaos Gnomes, I believe it's called.
The farmyard, the kind of psychedelic farmyard she's got on. It's kind of...
psychedelic farmyard, I like it, yeah.
Yeah, it's all, if any of you don't know the army, it's all kind of based on farmyard animals like sheep and things like that, where she's done them up and put them on the Warhammer bases, and it kind of... once you get your head around what everything is, it's a really nice army, and it's good fun to play against. But that game again was another game similar to the one I had against Ed in the 1,200 point list, where I think I had it on VPs and I had the upper hand massively tactically, but she had I don't know Chaos Dwarfs that well, but you can get a level 4 and a kind of a flying
Bull Taurus.
Bull Taurus, yeah, and that was a flying Bull Taurus. And of course, when your general's counting for 2 of your fortitude, this was the mission where you had to get more of your fortitude into the opponent's deployment zone. She basically just flew that into my deployment zone last turn. And managed to get the major victory on me there. So that was a bit of a shame as well, because I did manage to get her Bull Taurus down to 1 wound, and I think I took the general off. But yeah, so
that would have been your second game, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they could have been. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I can't
Yeah.
remember which way around the ogres and the and Annie was. So that would have been the second game. And yeah, as I say, it was just unfortunate that the general was left on 1 wound at the end of the game, which would have meant the major victory for me. It's amazing, kind of that one under the scoring system. I don't know if we mentioned it was kind of a 15-5 basically for a major win, and you got extra points based on kind of getting scenery, and there was a few other things you could get in the games. And so it's amazing kind of how 1 wound can make a kind of a 15-5 one way to a 15-5 another way. But as I kind of touched on earlier, it was having that flying high armor save general, which just flew into, turn 6, flies into the deployment zone. Not much you can do about it. And especially with my kind of list where my banners are, there was just not a lot I could do about it. So so I ended up getting kind of a big loss there.
Yeah, I mean we'll talk about it. I mean we'll do our 1 to 3 now, and you'll see it's similar things found. But that flying large target thing was a bit of a theme I found with my games. So let me tell you about mine. So first game I in the main event I played Ed, who you guys had played in the tournament. So it's the full 200 for 400. I actually quite liked his list. Every time I've played Tomb Kings in the last sort of 3 times I've played him in events, they've all been like this. Arcan the Black, which is a level 5 Death Wizard with a Hyra Titan and a Light Mage. And then he just had, Cut Skull Catapults, Casket Skulls, 1 big unit of snakes, Stalker unit, and just tons of chaff, basically, units of 10 archers
units.
Or archers.
3 units with banners in. I think
they all had banners.
Without.
That was the big thing. So many units of archers with banners, and normally you would just ignore the archers because they don't really do a lot. Always hitting on 5s, and it's kind of they're unlikely to wound you. But he had so many of units with banners in, and under the comp you had to focus them, which meant you weren't focusing his other bits, which I think was the important thing.
Definitely
scouting cavalry as well.
He did, which actually I think cost him the game in this game because it was Dawn Attack. Now it's a rulebook scenario, so you'll probably know the one if you've played it. You roll to see where everything come. All his stuff went on his right flank pretty much. He was running out of space, and all mine went on the left flank, and I was running out of space. So I was opposite him. And on the 6, you steal the initiative, don't you? One of you deploys first, and then you roll. I rolled a 6, and he'd scouted his cav in front of my big vampire bus, so I managed to get a charge through, and it was brilliant because it basically meant the entire game I wasn't out of combat. I think I was out of combat 1 turn of the whole game. So I couldn't get shot. None of his death magic. He kept trying a big purple sun through the side of me, but didn't quite get it off. And in the end, I ended up sort of taking everything and just losing a couple of bat units. So it was a good win. But the scoring system's out of 25, and even with that, because I hadn't really paid enough attention. Well, it wasn't I didn't pay enough attention. We'll talk about this as it goes, but it got to a point where you only need to win by 100 points, and when you win by double, you get another 2 points. So it's definitely worth smashing somebody. But then it gets to another point where really you want to add it up and have a look, and then it's like, well, should I bother killing this, or should I just go stand all my men on the bits of terrain? And as you say, flying generals are great for this. If you've got last turn, my vampire lord can go and stand on a building, that's worth a point. My battle stand can go stand on a hill, that's worth a point. Which seems a bit of an odd way to play Warhammer actually, and that was a bit of a theme over the weekend. But because of the random deployment, my movement 4 zombies ended up outside of my general's range. So they were never, ever going to be able to go and capture bits of terrain. So whereas your warriors players with their units of 5 fast cav, or as you're saying, flying generals and solo battle standards that are quite frequent in the warriors' armies and things. And we were actually talking off air, weren't we, about wood elves being potentially quite good under the system with a dragon and a flying BSB and glade riders and things with banners. I think there might even be something to be said for a Star Dragon High Elf list or something similar. But
I came across one that I had that issue.
It very much depends on the game because the scenarios were a bit of a mix. But yeah, so that was a good win to me. Always enjoyed playing Ed, and that was good. And then I sort of started off my run into demons and and warriors, basically. I played Steve Halliwell, who placed at the Warlords GT. Now, Saucy listeners would have heard Russfield talking about the tournament. I think he came second at the Warlords. I think Steve came third with his warriors. And this was the one that Mike was talking about, where you had to get your fortitude into your opponent's deployment zone. And, he had 2 Crusher units with banners. He had 2 Marauder Cav units with banners, a Zinchi BSB with the reroll 1s, 3-up ward business, and a Nurgle Demon Prince. So that's a lot of hard, fast-moving things. And obviously, it's quite a tough match for VC, although I feel fairly okay in it. But there was no way I was ever getting into his deployment zone, because I had to sit there and defend my own. I'm getting rushed by warriors. I've not got the ability to just suddenly just trundle past it and go into the deployment zone, because he'd just run everything else into it and win. So, again, we were pushed quite tight for time for this, and we had a draw. That's as simple as it went. It came down to where the game turns were short, and we didn't know if there was enough time. The only way I could get into his deployment zone was to march my Vampire Lord out 6 dice Van Hells and hope to get it off, and I did. I got him in the deployment zone and called it a draw. So that was a draw against Wok, and we both sort of got 12, 13 points. We had a couple of bits of terrain and stuff, but that was it. Tough match. I found it very, very hard with the fortitude to deliver, units of movement 4 zombies past the Warriors' army to get in the place. I mean, I've got a Vampire bust, but that is kind of the army, so I need it to fight the units, and the other guys were never getting there. And then I rocked up against a Demons of Chaos army, which was actually quite quirky in such. It was the sort of all Nurgle army, but normally you're used to seeing like a complete wall, but it wasn't quite that. Yeah, it had Epidemus and a Great Unclean One, but the Great Unclean One wasn't on Death, which was unusual. It was on Nurgle, and then it had 2 blocks of Plague Bearers, 3 beasts, a couple of single beasts, and a Nurgle Soul Grinder, which he kept referring to as Secret Tech or something along those lines. And it was horrible, actually. It's pretty good. I think it was probably the unit of the match. And then maybe some peripherals, but I don't think there was. And again, the weird wonky sideways deployment one. But it was mainly VPs, and it was looking like a really tight game. My unit, which had the Flaming Banner and the other Trickster's Shard, spent something like 6 rounds of combat killing 3 beasts, because he can just challenge every turn. So my Vampire Lord has to accept one of them. Yeah. And I had a Vargolf in the side, but he could just challenge the one that was standing next to the Vargolf. So the Vargolf did nothing. Little silly things like this. And it went on for ages, and in the end, it come down to Purple Sun. Now, in the game against Stee, my one chance... I went out to try and win the game with a Terrorgeist against Steve, and went for a scream on the Nurgle Demon Prince. Rolled a 4, didn't do anything. He then countercharged everything into it, which I thought was great, because then it gave me a chance to counter him with everything in front of me and sort of pick and get some overruns. But so I went in and I thought, I'll just try and Purple Sun, because I had the Chimera, a Chariot, and a Demon Prince all sort of in a line. So I was like, it doesn't take much, does it? A 1 in 6 chance to kill Demon Prince, it's worth it. Not really got anything else on. Got it off. Rolled a misfire, landed on my Necromancer, who failed his lookout, then failed his initiative test and died. So I was like, that was a fail. Then in this game, first Purple Sun, right the way you think, Nurgle Demon Army, it's all initiative 1 and 2, yeah, baby. Yeah. Misfire on my head, failed the lookout, but this time passed it. Second time, failed the misfire, passed the lookout, so I killed 4 knights. Third time, finally got it off, killed Epidemus, which is just at the right time, because have you guys played against Epidemus?
No, I haven't, no.
The reason he had Nurgle magic was because like Plague Wind hits all the models, and all the wounds you do carry, so he tallies up over the time. Yeah. And as he gets worse, you start to get +1 strength, +1 toughness, killing blow. Like the models get insane. The Beasts of Chaos with this are just outrageous. But I got it just the right time as they started to get. They got +1 toughness and +1 strength, I think, by this time. I Purple Sunned through Epidemus and got him. It was about the only thing I killed, but I killed him. And then a turn after, I committed to the side of the Soul Grinder, which I was a bit worried about, because my Vampire Lord, I think he could do 1 strength 10 hit with D6 wounds. I was a bit worried about the Vampire Lord dying, but at this point I wasn't killed a lot really. So I went in and again Purple Sun, got that one off, killed the Soul Grinder. And then this is the last turn where the scenarios where I should have played the scenario. I cost myself about 3-4 points here, I think. And it seems counterintuitive to me. I could charge a unit of 5 flies, kill it, get a lot of points. So I did. What I should have done is take my battle standard out and put him next to a building, and take my general out and put him next to a forest, and leave it at that, and then march the other unit up next to something. But I didn't. I just autopilot, didn't bother and got sort of like a 18 or 19 or something like that rather than a 20 something. And that, you know, those points really add up over the tournament if you don't do it. And that just comes down to playing the scenario. And some people I think are better adapting. But when you've played, well, I'm looking at my book at this stage, I've played 332 games of 8th edition, and the majority of those have been battle line, apart from the early ones. It takes a long time to get your head out of like that just constant first to kill basically, and just going in head first. But yeah, really good game against Rob. I really enjoyed it. And I actually thought he probably could have beat me at points. I was very worried about the match. But we were talking about it afterwards. It was just a few small mistakes and a purple sun that swung it. Well, not even mistakes, really, just choices. The Soul Grinder came forward when it could have sat on the baseline. And that's not a bad... That's not, that's wanting to play Warhammer, isn't it? It's not a bad choice, but that's just how it happens. So yeah, really enjoyed playing Rob. So hopefully I'll get another chance to play him again. Then game 3... no, sorry, that is my game 3. Yeah. Sorry, so Wayne, you tell me about game 3.
Well, game 1.
Well, game 1 will do.
Yeah. Chris Philp, he's Inquisitor podcast.
Oh yeah, I should say he runs a Warhammer. I think it's a 40k / Warhammer podcast, isn't it? I believe.
Yeah, they do. I think they do both. Yeah, and he rocked up with a massive display board. He built one for that. It's like a big river of blood. With his VC
so there was
army.
you thinking, I've got a big display board. Turns out, and his one is huge.
It's massive. Yeah,
it's like 6 foot wide.
Yeah. And you said to me, how'd you get that here? He said, I've got a big 4x4.
Yeah, I thought he was going to say, I brought it on a bus. Carried it under my arm.
Strapped to me back.
Yeah, with my Terrorgeist in my hand, yeah.
But yeah, he brought it. Was, big VC army, loads of skeletons and zombies. He hasn't played much Warhammer, so it was kind of I think it's the first Warhammer tournament he'd gone to as well. So he was kind of like, it was all new and shiny to him. Really nice bloke. We had a really friendly, it was like a club game. He had... like I say, he had a VC. He had 2 really big units of zombies and a big unit of skeletons, and he had a big unit of Vargulfs as well, which were, I think there was 7 of.
Was it 9 or something? It was a big old unit.
7 or 9. There was a big chunk of them, and we just the combats we got into it really early, and I managed to grind the Vargulfs off in the end, and. I won the game, but it was just a matter of the combats went my way, and it was just to be fair to me, there was a lot of for my rat ogres and stuff like that. There was a lot of stuff for me to kill. Low weapon skill. The multiple attacks. I got hitting on 3s, winning on 2s. There was a lot of stuff for me to kill. So that went my way. That was really good. So I got. I think the game ended because there wasn't a secondary objective in that game, so it was like 15. It was 15-5. I think some people got confused in their games actually. They were getting secondary objectives when they shouldn't have. But that was 15-5 to me.
We should briefly mention that, I suppose, is that the way it works. So Mike already touched on it. It's 15 for the winner, 5 for the loser, and then you had secondary and tertiary objectives. Tertiary objectives were go and stand by a piece of terrain with fortitude. That's a point. Or you can claim multiple pieces. So if you had a flying demon prince, like Mike said, flying ball Taurus, you go fly in the last turn and stand next to 3 pieces of terrain. It's 3 whole tournament points. It's a massive swing.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect the other person's score, but it affects yours. But it wasn't necessarily that well publicised that if the objective was basically to win by 100 points, to win the game, then you didn't get the 2 points in secondary. But having spoke to several people on the first game, several people marked themselves those extra points. So which is a little bit of an issue.
Which was a bit of a shame. But,
yeah.
But yeah, and I could have picked some more points up by getting the train stuff. The only thing I didn't agree with being able to claim more than one piece of terrain. So if you had, suddenly there's a massive combat going on and your opponent last turn, he flies equally between 3 bits of terrain and collects another 3 points. I wasn't a big fan of that, to be honest. I think you should be able to claim one piece of terrain. But yeah, no, it was a really good game. Really enjoyed playing Chris. Great, smashing bloke. And it was just a good way to start a tournament, actually. It was a really good way to start a tournament. And then second game, played VC again. And I played a guy called Ian Gilmore, who's a listener of the show.
Hello, Ian.
So hello, Ian, if you're there. And this was the game. I want to say it was the story for me of the tournament. Personally, Ian's got another VC army, and he's got 3 Vargulfs, and he's got big unit of skeletons, big unit of zombies. He's got Graveguard as well, and he's got a sort of lower level vampire which flies. And then he's got a Vampire Lord, White King, Battle Standard Bearer, and a Necromancer, I think it was.
And a Vargeist.
Vargeist, yeah. And I killed there was a Vargeist in the first game, and I managed to kill that. So,
you're on about Terrorgeist, the big.
Sorry, Terrorgeist. Yeah, Terrorgeist. Yeah. So, Ian flies his terror guys behind a building. There's quite a big kind of ruin that I took, and he flew it behind that, so I couldn't literally both my cannons, and he stayed there for like a few turns, just hiding. But I managed to just smash his whole army. Right, at one point his lower level vampire, which was flying, went to charge my Lord with a Fellblade, rolled a 111. So he couldn't make it. So he's 1 inch out the unit, right? So then he tries to Van Helsing back into the unit twice, and I managed to stop that. And then I shot him with both cannons, or shot him with one cannon. I can't remember. But and he took the 4-up ward, obviously being near the unit, failed it. I got him, killed him that way. But then, so as the game progresses, the Terrorgeist eventually comes out to play and screams at some stuff, and then goes into the flank of my Clanrat unit. My Clanrat unit grind it off because it'd taken 4 wounds earlier from the shot.
It's got no armour, has it?
Yeah,
so,
and I managed to grind it off, and then eventually just killed his whole army apart from the Vampire Lord.
Nice.
The Vampire Lord, right at the end of the game, was literally we had 2 turns left, and Ian says to me, he goes, "Oh, you do know what the scenario is, don't you?" And I said, "No, I don't actually. I've taken my money." He goes, "It's the fortitude in each other's deployment zone." So I'm looking at this Vampire Lord and I'm thinking, I'm going to lose it, right? So gets to I think it was my last turn, and I thought, right, Grace is looking at because what his Vampire Lord was doing was kind of like tap dancing around one of my Warp Lightning cannons, so I couldn't get hold of him, and so I thought, right, I've got enough dice here. I'm going to Warp Lightning the Vampire Lord. If I don't kill it, then I'm going to Skitter Leap into his deployment zone, because I had a unit of Storm Vermin there, and then that would have given me more fortitude than him in his deployment zone, so I won the game. What I should have done was I should have just rolled all my dice at Skitter Leap and put him straight in and not worried about the Warp Lightning. Because he'd taken a wound earlier, I cast the Warp Lightning. I didn't kill the Vampire Lord. It was a miscast. Rolled a 1 on the Warp Lightning, if that's what I didn't. So the wound went against me, he took a wound. The miscaster rolled an 8, and then he took another wound, he was dead. Right? So then the vampire's just like standing all on his own, whole army's gone. He's just standing in my deployment scale going, I win.
You can just see him with that fist pumping. Yeah. Just win.
So he got the 15 points, but I managed to get 16 points because I obviously had the 5 for losing. But then I had the 100 points, the double victory points. I'd broken
everything else,
broken the terrain, or picked up all the terrain pieces that I could, and I managed to pick up 16 points that way. But it was a cracking game, and Ian's a top bloke to play. Really kind of chilled. Even when all these models were coming off, he had this like poker face where he's saying like, "Eyes on the prize, eyes on the prize." Keep that vampire moving
He knew
forward.
what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing. Yeah, it was brilliant. It was a really, really good game.
Yeah, I think that was one of the stories of the weekend, actually.
Yeah.
It was quite funny because I remember someone coming up and telling me, you heard about Wayne. I was like, no, go on, and they told me about it.
I got a spot prize for that. They go later. They go, I got some Mantic Ogres and a Mantic Ogre character, which, really nice models, actually. Yeah, Ben came over and he said, I've heard about your story. Here's a spot prize. So that was good.
Got to say, I played Ian the next day, and it was a running theme, I think we'll find, of Ian's to roll really low on charges.
Yeah.
He didn't have much luck, I don't think, over the weekend.
The top bloke, though. Really nice guy.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and then third game, I played Byron Ord.
Oh, yeah.
And he had an unusual demon army, which I think against a lot of kind of sort of main tournament builds, they would have liked to play it because he didn't have the Greater Demon. He basically had, the big Seeker chariots.
Yeah.
The big ones. He had 2 of those, which you never see those, do you?
No.
Because they are quite soft and squidgy kind of thing. But he had 2 of those. He had 5 ambushing flesh hounds, big block of plague bearers like you usually see, 2 level 2 Zench heralds. I think he had a Nurgle BSB herald, and then he had some screamers. He had some 3 single beasts of Nurgle, which are horrendous.
Running theme.
They're just awesome, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're so good for their points. And then he had, what else did he have? It's just lots of
tons of stuff. Big old army.
Tons
wasn't
of
it?
small.
Really nice demon army. Actually,
Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah, and it just loads of it. But those chariots against my army, against my blocks, are awesome. He got into me so quickly. I made a mistake in my deployment because we talked about it after the game, didn't we, Dan? That really well deployed. What I should have done, because it was the kind of opposite corners. What I should have done was
meet and engagement.
Meet and engage. Yeah, what I should have done was I should have deployed at the deepest point to give me more time to actually react to what he was going to do, because he was just on me in no time. Those Seeker Chariots, they move so fast.
Yeah.
And it was like 2d6 strength 2, and obviously all the attacks from the guys, and he just ripped units apart really quick. And then, because I had to kind of try and counter it, the ambushing Fleshhounds, they came on and they just called untold havoc. They got the cannons, and I just wasn't in it. I was just not in that game at all. And I think I got 6 points out of it. I got 1 piece of terrain, and obviously the 5 for the lost. But I just couldn't. It was one of them games where I was just taking models off, and I couldn't react to anything. And even when I did get into combats, the whole -1 to hit with the flies, you had a big unit, you had a unit of flies, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
Really, I was not in that game at all.
No, it was. It was an interesting game because I was playing behind you, wasn't I? And I think a few people, including me, were jibbing you about being in the big boys' room or the top tables.
Yeah, I'd moved up, and got a nosebleed.
Yeah,
got too big for his boots, didn't it?
Yeah, and it did look like quite a strong, very strong army against you, because it had so much infantry destroying things.
It was looking around at the tables that were there. It was the one army I didn't want to play.
No,
because against a lot of armies, I'd love to play Byron's build, because it being kind of a softer demon list, very different.
Yeah, but
against me, it was spot on.
It just ground you out, didn't it?
Yeah,
really?
it was just spot on against me.
There were a lot of chariots at the event. I think I saw quite a lot of chariots in various tables, and I don't think chariots are a great matchup for you in general.
Yeah,
are they?
it's the 2d6. Yeah, the speed of the chariots, picking where they want to fight, especially tagging on with stuff. Because at one point, he had that tagged on when the unit flies.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, that was really really good. And then the single beast of Nurgle, they won't
Horrible,
pin anything. I mean, at one point, it's like, I've tried it twice now. My Lord with the Fellblade cannot kill a single beast.
No,
he's
it's just
tried
so
it twice.
To hit
Just doesn't.
Regen.
He just can't hit him.
4 wounds.
Yeah,
it's a 4 wounds, I think, as well. 4 wounds, regen, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
As I say, I had Flaming Banner and the other tricksters for exactly that reason, and it didn't seem to make any difference.
We think with the Fellblade, it's strength 10 d6 wounds, that you have to re-roll successful ward saves, but it doesn't affect regen.
No.
So obviously you just don't kill it.
No,
so.
I know. I mean, my Vampire Lord first world problems, I know, but he has the same problem. It's a couple of good regens and it does nothing. So I think they're probably point for point one of the best units in the game. Actually, a single beast.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. I saw pretty much every demon player rocking them.
Yeah, and the thing is, even if you comp them, just 2 single ones on their own is pretty good. You don't need the big beast unit. I'm not even sure. No. I mean, Saucy show members can listen to Russ Phil's Super Demon players' thoughts on it, but I think a lot of guys who have been playing top end demons, although they rate them, they don't feel they need them. That's the strength of the army. You don't need them. They're just a good to have. But the 2 single ones are especially good, I think. So that was interesting. And the Seeker Chariots were good, were they? Because we don't see them very often. I'm sure there's a few listeners thinking, I want to play them. They weren't normal Seeker Chariots. So they Exalted, are they called? The
the Exalted one. One he had a Herald on, and the other one. Yeah, because he had like a Pikachu model that he put.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
That was the Herald, and then the other one was an exalted one, but obviously with no characters on it. But yeah, I mean against warriors, like they'll run into say like a Jugger unit and do nothing, because of the strength and everything, and then the Juggers will just rip it apart. But against clan rats and giant rats and all that kind of stuff, it just ripped me apart. So.
Good, sounded good.
The best thing I'll say with the weekend, I got my rat ogres into a flank of a unit of, I don't know, it's like 40 or 50 zombies with a level 3 necromancer in. Because the first 2 came, I killed 2 level 3 necromancers. Yeah. And the rat ogres got into the side of that unit and it took it out in one turn. Just absolutely obliterated the unit, which was, I know it was only zombies, but it was still good.
It felt good. Take it all off. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That is good. And you finished on a reasonable total, didn't you, on the first? Was it 35 or something?
Yeah, I think I got, was it 15 for the first game? 16 or 17 for I think it was 17 for it might have been
and then the 5 or 6 lost. Yeah, so I'm sure it was about 35 out of 55 or something. So that's like another tournament in a row where you've done all right on the first day, wasn't it? So it was good. And Mike, you weren't doing great.
Yeah, don't ask.
Yeah,
it's embarrassing when Wayne's doing better than me. I don't know.
I don't know. He's been gaming it up recently.
Yeah,
if you used a half decent army, you might have some results.
On a bit of a roll.
I'm playing. I must admit, I'm quite happy with the way I'm playing at the moment. Considering the builds I'm taking.
So watch out, Adepticon 2014.
Yeah, I'm on it.
I'm there. He's gearing up. It's taking him,
sort of
20 years, but he's gearing up.
20 years. Yeah, he's getting there. So that was good. So Saturday night, we, again, there was something else. There was a skirmish event going on, wasn't there? And some other bits and pieces. So we went out, had some food, which was quite good fun. We went out with about 8 of us, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Just about the right amount of group to not have to struggled to get seats and stuff. That was quite good fun, and they were doing seminars.
We had the Hobbit table, didn't we, to start off with? We had to move tables.
Oh yeah, we did.
sat at this table, and it was so low, I couldn't get my knees under. It was literally, you bashed your knees into this table.
Me and Mike were
right. It's just the kids' corner.
Yeah, me and Mike were right. So we were on these amazingly comfy sofas, and you were like stuck. And we were like, yeah, okay, we'll move. So no, we went to this big table, and there was about 8 of us, and that was really good. But they were doing seminars in the evenings. So Ben Curry was doing one on gaming, Ben Johnson was doing one on painting. There's a few of them going on that you could sign up for. Just quite small little groups to cover some bits and pieces. I'm sure they'll be out on YouTube or something to see. But and Marcus was meant to be doing Horus Heresy, but there was a big wad of dropouts just for the event, and a lot of the ones that were interested in the heresy didn't turn up, so I think Marcus wasn't needed. But he, no word of a lie, he actually did it while we were at the table. A couple of the guys were asking all these questions,
wouldn't it? Yeah.
And I was like, I don't care, it's 40k. I'm sure it'd be wonderful if I was into it, but it was really quite funny. So that did actually happen. We had a Horus Heresy seminar whilst eating our burger and chips or whatever, so that was good. So we did that, and then we went back to the venue, didn't we? I got taught how to play Perudo. I can't
believe you never played Perudo.
No, I haven't. And I had such a bad headache. I mean, there's a few people complaining.
It doesn't help if you've got a headache. That's a noisy game.
Yeah, I actually was really enjoying it. So, guys, if you're listening next time, I'm there. I'm playing Perudo. But
you're rubbish at it as well.
I am absolutely appalling at it. And they were ribbing me because I just couldn't get it. I was like, what?
Because I came over and you were like quite late into the game, weren't you? Yeah. And I was watching you play, and I played like Perudo. We used to be like every tournament you played Perudo, right? And I was watching you play, and I was like, what a muppet! This is quite good. I'm actually watching him play something that he's rubbish at.
I was first
good
out.
for him. It's good for him.
I started right at the end when I went out. I suddenly realised what I was doing wrong, and I was like, oh, actually, I think next time I could be all right. I don't think I'll ever be good because my maths ain't good enough. But I was like, I'll be fine. So yeah, that was good. So I played that. I had such a headache. I just took so many pills in the end. So that was good. There were some other card games going on.
Pills for the headache, might you say, not pills before the headache.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. It wasn't pills that caused it, it was pills to solve it. So, so that was that. But there was loads of stuff going on. There was some board games, wasn't there?
I tried to sign up for the painting seminar, but I think it was full actually, so I didn't manage to get in on any of them. That was the one I really wanted to attend, because it was Ben Johnson doing it, wasn't it? And it looked really good. I've seen some pictures that Ben put up on Twitter afterwards, and it looked like they had really good attendance for those seminars, and it looked like they panned out well. Saw a lot of Magic the Gathering players. That looked like had quite a good turnout as well, and people just getting pickup games all over the place. I just saw people having games in the big hall, which is a great thing to do. I mean, by then I think we were obviously one of few that had turned up on the Friday and played all Friday. So I think we'd realised with another 3 games to go tomorrow, we'd already had kind of 6 games of Warhammer. You're starting to feel a little bit of the burn. So I wasn't that up for a pickup game myself, but yeah, there was loads going on, wasn't there? There was loads of buzz around the event, lots of people doing different things. It was quite interesting.
I think you'll see a big difference next year, because obviously they've done that now. Like, the 2 Bens have done it, and and they've got a feel for how it works and what they've done right, what they've done wrong, and then next year they can make it bigger and better because they'll kind of know where they are.
No, I agree.
Which is great. Which is brilliant, really.
We'll get some overall feedback from you guys in a sec on this. But yeah, it's it was a very cool night. I like it. It had a nice chilled feel to it, and the bar was pretty cheap. And if someone said the bar was expensive, I was like,
definitely
not.
It
is proper cheap. Yeah. I looked at it.
Southern prices.
I bought someone a drink, and I forgot what she said, and I was like, pardon, is that just for one? You got that one on it? Yeah, that's both. I was like, oh, okay, then there you go. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. And they played this. There's other random card games being played. I saw quite a few of them. One of them was some weird thing where you that I watched for a couple of minutes, where you got a card and it had a statement on it, and then you all try and put in.
Yeah, what was all that about?
Well, so you have a statement like this it wasn't a family friendly game, but you have a statement like, I don't know, the problem with Islam is, or something, and then you put all funny cards down, and the winner is the person that has the funniest response.
So it's just like captions against each other.
I think I've seen that before.
It did look like quite a laugh, and there was a group of 10 or 12 of them playing it, wasn't there? And some of the things that are coming out were quite funny. So I think it's one of those things when you've had quite a few beers. It's
they were like speech bubbles. Were they like speech bubbles? Something like that?
Yes, yeah.
And white cards.
Black and white cards. Yeah,
I briefly kind of looked around and I saw them putting these cards down, but I wondered what it was.
Yeah, it's a card game. I stood there for a while watching it. It looked quite fun. But yeah, I think you have to have a few drinks to find it amazingly hilarious, but it did look good. I mean, almost shame we didn't bring Chaos in the old world, because that's kind of game.
Yeah, we were saying that would have been good to have a game of that. They were doing that as well. Gareth's Query Corner. They were doing a live one of them, weren't they?
Yeah. So Bad Dice listeners will know they have like a listeners' question time basically called Gareth's Query Corner, and they had T-shirts and badges and all sorts promoting it. But he did a live one, which I was actually disappointed we missed, but it got so late in the end that we decided to go, didn't we, before they did it? But I think it's going to be available on YouTube anyway, so hopefully we can catch up on that. So that was good, and we had a chance to meet a load of listeners that came up and saw us. So
that was really good.
Thanks to all the guys, Keith and all the guys from that gaming group and people that came up and spoke to us. That was good over the weekend just to chat and see how they
met a lot of people I've never met before at the weekend. Come over, listeners, and it was good because obviously from their point of view, they kind of if they're listening to the show, they kind of get to know us, and we don't get to know them.
No.
So when they come over and say hello, it's always nice to actually see that side of it. So it was good. It was really good.
Yeah, I think on top of that there was just a really, from who I spoke to, there seemed to be a really high proportion of first time tournament goers as well. And I think I guess maybe a bunch of them playing Games Workshops or whatever, and that's the rules they're used to, is playing out the book Warhammer, and maybe they felt more comfortable with it. And as you say, it had that more kind of convention type feel to it. So there's more going on, and then they think it's not as gaming focused, and so they're worrying about kind of people being super gamey or whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, most of the people that I played against seemed to think it was kind of their first tournament, and people I was chatting to in the evenings were like, yeah, I've never come to anything like this before, and it's great, and they seem to really be enjoying it. And I think it's a good environment for those sort of people to pick up and go into the tournament scene.
I saw some feedback actually on the Warhammer forum, and someone had put they weren't sure if the tournament scene was going to be for them, and I think everybody thinks that, don't they? They think they take this first leap into it and they think, I'm not sure, and then you just get hooked. You really do get hooked. There's not many people. I can't think of anybody I've ever met that's gone to a tournament, a decent one, a full big tournament, and thought I'm never going to another one of those again. So I
remember the first tournament I went to, big tournament, and I got battered. I mean, just absolutely battered. Like, really. Because I'd only just sort of like. I don't like say I've been playing. I'd been playing for a long time, but I'd played so sporadically in the club, and then you play players that play regular, kind of like it is now. You play players, but I still really enjoyed it. Yeah. I still really enjoyed it because it was a whole new experience. Never seen that many gamers in a hall before, and it was
the armies.
And, seeing everyone's armies and talking about painting and just meeting new people and having a few drinks, and it was great. I loved it, and the games were kind of irrelevant. Because of the whole social side of it. So, and I imagine that even 20 years on, that's not well, not 20 years on, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
that side of it's not really changed.
No,
it's developed. But it's still fundamentally the same thing. People go there for the social aspect, and some of my friends that I've made over the years in tournaments, that's the only time I get to see them. Like I hadn't seen Marcus and Steve for ages.
No.
I hadn't seen them since Whoops last year, and they were both there. So we, when we went on the Saturday when we were all having a meal together, it was good to catch up with them guys and have a chat.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, certainly something I've heard from a lot of tournaments starting to do this, which sounds really fun. I guess you've got to be at the right venue for it. Is even the non-gaming related stuff. So the football before like a tournament, for example. Like I'd love to go. I haven't been able to go to one.
I've never been at a place because I love football and I love playing football.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah, they actually we restarted it at Denmark the last couple of years. Basically, there's been a big contingent of English out there, so we've had almost a full 11 aside at points when we've been out there, and that's been good fun. And then was it this? Oh no, it was the Six Nations, wasn't it? The Six Nations event. It was an open team event this year. They did it as well, but I actually had a banging headache that particular day and didn't play. But normally I'm well up for playing football. I'm not exactly Mr. Fitness anymore, but I used to play a bit when I was younger, and I enjoy playing it regardless of the fact I'm old and past it. But it's good fun.
Yeah,
I know, but I look like I'm about 80.
He did actually over the weekend. He got accused of being Mike's dad.
Oh yeah. So let's tell this story then. So Saturday night, we say this, we're not 100% sure it was me, but
it was.
So we come out of the eating venue, just come out, and there's these two ladies of the night.
They weren't ladies, they were just outside.
Okay, they were hammered people from Derby.
Yes,
and they're like, "All right, lads, you going into town?" type thing, and we just ignored them. Wayne's on the phone to his missus a couple of steps in front of me. There's me, Mike, and a gent named Graham, who we haven't mentioned, who sort of stayed with us and was around for the weekend, so we walked out, and they're like, "All right, sexy," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm all right." And then I realised I was talking to Mike, right? And then so then they start shouting at Mike, "Show us your bum, and I'll show you my let's just say they wanted to show him something, yeah? Then, and this carries on a couple of times, and he's ignoring him, and he's sort of looking around smiling. And then one of them goes, look, are you just shy because you're out with your dad? Like that. And I was like...
That didn't go down well.
And I just looked around, and I could not work out if it was me or Wayne.
I was talking to the wife, and I didn't hear none of this. They had to tell me about this afterwards.
Yeah.
But I was kind of like separated from it, if you know. And I was there, but I was kind of sad because, and I was,
yeah.
And
when you retold the story later on, you did forget to mention that bit.
Yeah. What's that?
That they called you my dad.
They called someone Mike's dad. Hopefully it was
you keep
Wayne.
telling yourself that.
Yeah. I think the general consensus when this story got retold that they were actually talking about me, which is mildly disappointing. There we go. So I'm Posh Mike's dad. So that was good. So that was Saturday night. So really good time actually. Just nice, chilled, laid back, typical tournament weekend really. So then we went into game 4, 5, and 6. So how'd it go, Mike?
Yeah, so 4, 5, and 6 is really good. I rocked up really bottom tables by this point. I'd had a couple of shockers where I just I came in the next day kind of a bit more prepared to play scenarios. I think I kind of obviously we were travelling quite far for this tournament. I think we were all quite knackered the first day, and then we managed to get a good night's sleep that night. Really close to the venue we are, so we managed to get up quite late for it. And so I rocked up and played the same opponent that Wayne had already played, Ian Gilmore. So I think it was Watchtower for the first game of this one.
Watchtower,
which is out of all the scenarios is probably the one that's a bit hotly debated, as it were, as should it be in, should it not be in, because it can be. I mean, a lot of people quoted as saying basically the game can be decided on the roll of a dice if you've got the right list. So for anyone who doesn't regularly play it, it's kind of when you're deploying, a person can, on the roll of a dice, can put 20 infantry models into a building, and if you've got something like 20 Nurgle warriors, you're not shifting them basically, and or it's very difficult to shift them. So in this game, I think you also when you're deploying on the 12-inch line, the building was bang in the middle, which means for turn 1, you're only about 11-inch charge. I think everyone was finding they're about 11-inch,
7 or less, isn't it?
Yeah, on the dice. So even if you are first in the building, it's kind of you can get charged first turn really easy about it. So Ian Wayne kind of already explained what was in his list. It was kind of a foot based, the baby flying vampire and the kind of the bigger vampire, and it was all very infantry and combat based. And he won the roll, put I think it was 20 ghouls into the building. And of course, when I then set up my 24 Temple Guard directly opposite the building, and basically first turn charged the building and managed to wipe out the ghouls in one round of combat, which was pretty impressive going. I think I buffed them up a bit actually to get them out of the building, and then he found himself across the board staring down his turn 1 with my Temple Guard all in the building, and I don't think he really saw much of a way to shift them. So as I kind of said earlier when Wayne was saying about the charges failing on a 1-1, he basically had the same horrendous luck against me about 4 times in a row. So as we just said on the maths, it was about a 7 to get into the building. It was an 11-inch charge, and he had 2 units. He had his Grave Guard, and I think he had a unit of skeletons he was trying to charge into the building. And I think he failed 2 turns in a row. He got kind of 1-1-2 and then 3-1-1 and et cetera, et cetera. So he failed to get into the building twice, 2 turns in a row with 2 units when he only needed a 7 to begin with. And I think that kind of threw his game off. I think that when he failed to do that, it was kind of, by that time, being the lizard player I am, I managed to get the skinks in the way, the pterodons in the way, just held him up, managed to get some scarvets into the bunker. So the only mistake I think he really made in this game is he was running a Terrorgeist, and he flew it forward turn 1. And if you talk to a lot of experienced vampire count generals, they often say it actually can be really effective to hold it back. There's a real temptation to throw it out there turn 1, scream the world off. He's really tough. He's kind of difficult to shift, but in this example, it didn't work. He flew him forward 20 inches, screamed the building, which is probably a pretty good move. I had 24 Temple Guard in there. He took off about 7 or 8 of them, which was a large chunk. It made it a lot more manageable if he managed to get his vampire in there. And if he had managed to make some of those early game charges, it could have been a completely different game, but he didn't. And then, unfortunately, I managed to get both my Scarvets into his Terrorgeist my turn 2, and take it off and then get into the bunker. And unfortunately, my Scarvets being tanked up with the 1-up rerollables and the -1 to hit, he just couldn't get anywhere near the building. I just kept throwing stuff in the way. And as I said, I was really concentrated on the scenario on this one, which was like, it doesn't matter if I throw everything in the way, I've just got to hold the building. So I probably did lose more points than I needed to. The vampire ended up blending a few of the scarvets, I think. But as I say, I just kept throwing things in the way and I won the building. I think by the end of the game, I'd taken off pretty much everything of his. As soon as that vampire wasn't doing what it was supposed to do and he got rid of the Terrorgeist and he'd thrown so much into trying to get the building, I cleared up on the VPs. I got whatever terrain I could get my hands on, and I think I got a pretty big win that game. I think
Good news.
Yeah, I think it was about 20-something 5. But yeah, as Wayne said, he's a lovely guy. He took it all on the chin. I think after the woes of his previous day, I think he wasn't too pleased to see his dice kind of giving up on him a bit. But he took it well, didn't he?
He did against me. He didn't bat an eyelid. It was just that was the game. He just got on with it. It was great.
Yeah, and it was always a really friendly environment. I did keep apologising for his terrible dice.
Mind you, saying that he won the game. He got the scenario against me. So he had
was a bit of a player.
He schooled me.
So so that was a really good game. And then game 2, so that shot me up the tables quite a bit actually with that big win. And I was playing Martin Morin.
Yeah.
So he was running, as Dan said, in the 1,200 point. The what would Curry do? Is it Zinch?
Zinch Demons.
Yeah, Zinch Demons. And so everything in his army was Zinch. The problem for me is, I guess, not being quite such a regular tournament goer. I mean, I go to a few, but not that many, and you kind of get stuck in playing whatever's at your club. And most of the things in the army, I literally just haven't come up against before. No. It was those burning chariots were coming at me, a keeper of secrets, all these kind of
A Lord of Change.
A Lord of Change, sorry, the chicken he kept calling it. So
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
that's the one. And it's just things that I don't come up against, and so. At the end of the game, I lost this one horrendously. I made a really bad mistake. I can't remember what the scenario was. I lost that badly that the scenario almost didn't come into it. I lost my slan about turn 2 or 3 by a mistake that I made. Quite a simple mistake I made. He basically had a very, very mobile. The army is... Everything's mobile. Big units of screamers, the chicken and the chariots that can all fly and move and everything like that. So it was... very difficult to place my stuff right, and eventually he managed to get a unit of screamers into my slan, who was just with skinks at the back of the board, and took him off. And after that, it was a bit of a non-game. It was a shame because it looked like it was going to set up to be quite a nice game, but it did end up being a bit of a non-game. But we still had a nice time playing it, and it was nice to find out what he did. And he gave me some pointers at the end of the game, and I said to him that. The thing is, what he was giving me was tactically sound advice, but my issue is I just didn't know what everything could do, and so even if it was the right thing to do, I wouldn't have known. So it was just good, and that's what I find really great about tournaments is playing all these different people. You just learn so much more about the game. I always come away from a 6-dayer thinking, I just feel I know how to play my army 200 times better now, and it's really nice when you're at that stage where you don't play quite so much to get so kind of to ramp up your kind of experience so quickly and to feel like you're such a better player over such a few short of sprint of games. But yeah, that was a really good game. His army was really interesting. It was one that you don't normally see, and I think he'd had a mixed bag of luck with it. But he was obviously a good player using a kind of an interesting army, so that was quite fun. And then my last game was this was a standout army for a lot of people. They'd seen it around the tournament. It was a high elf list which had a massive dragon. It was a custom dragon. I don't know where the model's from. I don't know if you
might be McFarlane.
Probably.
I can't remember. Yeah,
it looked like a McFarlane. I don't know if it was, but it looked like a McFarlane one.
Yeah, so it was a fantastic army. It was pretty much all mounted. I don't think it was. So it was a high elf list which had. A couple of Skycutter chariots, which again you just don't really see. He had a massive is it Sun Dragon, the one that's the strength 7 attack. Star Dragon, yeah, the beefy one. A massive bus of Dragon Princes and a couple of units of Silver Helms and things like this. And this was the problem for me. It was really difficult to pick up the points of it. And it was all just so quick. It was kind of under this meta of really manoeuvrable, high armor save or toughness models, and again having that general and the fortitude on a dragon was just really difficult. This was the game where actually you could deploy
Blood and Glory, 15 on, wasn't it?
So you could deploy 15 on, and I made a mistake in my deployment basically of going a bit too close to him. So I wasn't that close, but I was leaving him kind of first turn 11-inch charges. But the problem is I was leaving him a lot of 11-inch charges. So he kind of
Swift Strider with everything.
Yeah, it was his last game, and he was thinking, well, I'm bottom tables, let's just go for it. So basically turn 1, and I realised what a mistake I'd made after after he kind of said it through. In a normal game, you wouldn't be too worried because he might not commit it. But he basically looked at all of his models and said, you know what, I'm going in with the lot. Like pretty much everything
Wayne
charged.
style.
Yeah. Pretty much everything charged turn one. And he was looking at it. He was like, well, statistically, something's going to get in on an 11 or a 10 or something like that. You know, statistically, some of it's going to get in. And he said, look at how you deployed. That's really going to screw you up. And it did pretty much. So I think turn one, he managed to get a Sky Cutter Chariot and I can't remember, I think a unit of Silver Helms into just some of my skinks I had at the front. Then that really ruined all my kind of any type of movement I had.
Well, they like to play against the Sky Cutters.
Well, against me, they were fabulous because it was just kind of like skinks and they just tear through skinks. On the impact hits, they tear through skinks basically because you can't get. So javelin skinks are better against, are really good in this edition because they've got that parry, but you don't get it against the impact hits. And so they were just taking out my front line. I mean, they didn't do a lot the whole game. I wouldn't say that they were a standout choice for him, but it was just something that could wipe out a skinks in one turn. That could move 10 and kind of get in over a really long distance. And that kind of screwed me up. I think it was just good against the matchup against me.
Yeah.
And my bad deployment. I shouldn't have ever have even given him the charges, to be honest. And then again, from that point on, it turned into a bit of a non-game again, because as soon as I couldn't move any of my backline stuff because I was tied up, it was really over because the Star Dragon just came in and did the business, to be honest. He had the general on it as well that was quite choppy, and as I'm finding with the Lisbon list, there's just nothing you can really rely on in combat, especially when everything's bearing down on you so quickly. And so I feel like I actually played it after that original mistake. I played the game quite well, but in the end of the day, the Star Dragon with the Lord on was a Star Dragon with the Lord on, and I've got no answer to it really.
No.
And when he got the first turn charge in as well, the dragon's tied up in combat, which means any of the kind of, I did have Searing Doom on the Slan. I swapped it out with the signature with the lore attribute on the high magic, but he was just staying in combat just so that I couldn't do it, and so it was impossible for me to ever really turn it around. So the Slan's the only thing I've really got to rely on of taking out those big targets, and yeah, if they stay in combat, they're kind of safe from him. So it was a really good game. I mean, he was playing it kind of just push it forward and have a good time, which is kind of not how my army likes to play at all. It's kind of the worst thing. And unfortunately, as we all found out during the weekend, the meta is just really super good combat troops that push forward and get on top of you quicker than you can react, basically. And at those top tables, you basically just see those two kind of lists clashing together, and that's kind of how the game goes. It's the subtleties on the top table that kind of push through a clear winner. But against me, if I don't have that first turn and they're bearing down on me, there's just not a lot my list can do, I don't think. Well, there were some other Lisbon players at the tournament that did do quite well, but I'm obviously not up to their
Not amazing, though. I mean,
No.
I think Marcus Pitt, he didn't finish higher. Actually, I think there was a Raphael Harbinson, I think, was the highest placed, and
Yeah.
I think he had a Death Slan and Teto Echo, which is a good combo.
Yeah.
Some Temple Guard, and the rest is just a load of rubbish stuff. But I think he said, I saw somewhere, either a tweet or something, that he had a couple of really fortuitous results in places.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of need it the way that tournament was going. I know Marcus, I spoke to Marcus in the week as well, with his Lizards, and he was saying that it was just had the problem of delivering the banners into the right place,
Yeah,
because it's on
that's it.
skink units and they're not great. And yeah, and you have to end up playing quite defensive with a lot of it to protect your Slan. And as you say, the meta at the moment is very aggressive, isn't it? Very fast forward, run at you, and that causes traditional Lizardmen a problem. I mean, if you list that, it sounds pretty standard Lizardmen, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But maybe it's time for the standard Lizards don't work anymore.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably the case. And there's certain units that were just golden in the old book, like the Salamander with the -3 armor, which really helped deal with the meta of a lot of any of the night buses that were about, or anything like this. But now that they're just strength 4 and they can't march, I'm finding they just don't work out for me quite as well. But I mean, this tournament was really great for me finding out what works and what doesn't work. And I will drop and try bits. I'm kind of going to try everything in the book through it. I mean, the Bastillodon, I haven't really spoken about him throughout any of the games. I found that he was an okay choice, but that was about as far as it went. He had the magic missile, but again, I'm finding the list that I'm coming up against at the moment, the real problem, have no chaff. As I was just explaining about the high elf list, it's kind of big Buster Knights, big Dragon, and that's that kind of mid-range magic missile. It's just not doing anything for me. But, you know, against the right matchup, the Bastillodon is still possibly a good choice. I'll keep him in there. As I've spent the money on buying him, I'll keep him in there for a while anyway. But, yeah, again, he was a really nice player, this high-elf player, and he just wanted to kind of push it forward last game, which meant that I kind of had to take a back seat. But I said, even though it was easily for me to see that I'd lost everything by about turn 3, I said to him, we'll play out all 6 turns. I won't give up, just to not take that sweet victory away of getting through everything away from you. So I let him have his kind of his moment of taking everything off. Yeah, so. Yeah, that was good. As obviously, I finished off on a massive loss for that. Again, it was another one like when I lost my Slan. It was a bit of a non-game from reasonably early through a simple mistake I made. And that's it with Lizards. They're an incredibly unforgiving army. I mean, you see how Jack Armstrong plays them, and he's a very good Lizardman player, and he basically just doesn't really make a mistake, and that's how you've got to play them well. And unfortunately, until I get enough tournament games under my belt, I kind of feel that too many mistakes are slipping in, which Lizardmen struggle to recover from. As soon as they get into your lines, it's kind of it gets a bit messy. But
they've always been one of those armies that if you're really, really good at them, they're really aggravating for people to play against, and you'll be very hard to beat. But they've never been something I don't think that new players can pick up and do that well with.
Yeah.
Or not even new players, but just inexperienced of playing whatever you're going to be playing at tournaments.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
That's the problem. A question for you that I'm sure listeners will want to know: what were you running lore-wise on the Slan?
So Lawmaster High Magic. That kind of worked out okay for me through the tournament. So I quite like the Fiery Convocation. I was 6 dice in that on the kind of the biggest units, especially it was good against Skaven and things with lots of models. Yeah.
The VC, I'd imagine it was good against
Yeah,
as well,
exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is again, the meta is like the Monstrous Cavalry, but to be fair, with me whining about the meta, down at the bottom tables, the meta doesn't really take that much effect. But the thing that's really good about Fiery Convocation is just it remains in play. So at some point they're having to chuck the dice into dispelling it, and it's a 19 to cast. It's not a kind of small spell. But I was chatting to the Lizardman player we went out with on Saturday night. I think it was
Marcus.
Yeah, Marcus. We're out with Marcus, and he was saying to me that. The only issue he's having is it doesn't have an answer for everything. So he was running Wandering Deliberations, which is the signature spells.
Yeah.
And I was saying, well, the reason I'm not running that is because you can swap out for any of the signature spells you want really easily with the lore attribute. And he said, but the problem is it doesn't give you the spell when you need it, which I think's completely the case and something that I found, and that's why I'm probably going to drop High Magic. There's a couple of nice spells in there, but it's quite situational, and I'm finding looking at the signature spell, if you have all the signature spells, it's such a great toolkit. And like, for example, in my last game when I was playing against the High Elf player with the dragon, I needed the Searing Doom turn 1. He was into me turn 2 with the dragon because he didn't make the first turn charge. He was into me turn 2. And by then he was in combat. I had the Searing Doom, could never cast it the rest of the game. I really needed to chuck the big 6 dice on and get the boosted version turn 1, and it wasn't there. And again with Spirit Leech and things like that, if they're fast moving, which everything is at the moment, you need the spell. You need turn 1, and I think he's completely right with that. And I found that actually High Magic didn't, or Magic in general, didn't do a lot for me this whole tournament. And when you're sinking so many points into it, it's kind of. It's awkward. I mean, there's no really good. We were talking about this. There's no real good combat buffs in there. You can boost the weapon skill.
Yeah, Hand of Glory is good, but it's only 1, which means they just shut it down.
Yeah, that's it. And as soon as you're in combat, they know to just shut that down, and then there's not a lot that's going to be going on for you in combat. Whereas I think some of the old traditional Lizard builds obviously relied on that -1 strength and toughness from Death Magic, or the -3 leadership, or you got your Eye Shard off obviously from the Skink Priest. That's always good, but there's a lot of things you're doing without, and the light magic buffs obviously, which became popular on the Scrocs and things like that. But yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to have to swap out and try the signature spells for a while. The High Magic is really good in the right matchups. Like Arcane and Forging, fantastic spell. If there's a Choppy Lord or something and you want to get rid of an item he's got on a 2-up, I mean, a lot of people were shutting that down every turn. That was the one that people really wanted to shut down, because they've obviously, you can target scroll caddies with it and make them use their scroll there and then basically to get rid of it. But yeah, Magic didn't do a lot for me. And when you're a kind of avoidance Magic and shooty army, that's not something you want to be saying.
No, you need something to take the big models off and big points off, don't you? It's normally where the def comes in. But, I mean, at this tournament as well, they ran it at the balance of the FAQ. So you could use Inspire and Presence. So it wasn't as powerful as sometimes it has been. But it was still, that's still an option. As I say, the highest finishing Lizard list, I'm pretty certain, had Def Magic on the Slan. So that's another one. But I quite like Wandering Deliberations. Like you, with the High Magic, I found that when I was playing against Infantry, it was amazing because it hits every model in the unit. So it's like a mini snipe as well. But it is a high casting value. And if you're not playing it, like you say, what have you got?
Yeah.
What are they going to have to stop first turn? Not a lot.
That's it. I mean, the thing is, it's quite a utility lore, as in there's quite a few things, but there's only kind of one spell that's really good per phase almost. And if your opponent knows what they're doing, they'll just shut that one spell down. So it's at the beginning of the game. you know, they're shutting down the arcane unforging. As soon as you get in combat, they're shutting down the hand of glory, and it's just they can see what's going on quite easily with it. That's the problem, and shut down the relevant spell with just 6 dice basically. And they almost don't. A lot of the times they didn't care of letting me get off spells and things like that. The only issue is that one thing that I found was really effective against me running that lore is, as we said, you can switch out spells. And what a lot of people were doing is they would know I was going for a specific spell that I was looking at swapping out, be it Spirit Leech against the Skaven or Searing Doom against the High Elves. And so they were shutting down my magic early doors with the scroll and throwing a lot of dice at spells and just trying to get rid of it, knowing I was trying to swap out, which again was stopping me getting the spell when I needed it. And again, they knew that, and you're playing against players who know what you're doing, and so you can't kind of subtly say, oh, I'm throwing a couple of dice at this spell that's not going to do a lot. They'll let it through. They were saying, oh, well, I know you're doing that just because you want to swap out. You don't actually care about the spell, and stopping it. And so...
yeah, because it's another way of playing it is use your scroll on that, and then you still haven't got it. Like, say, using that example, the dragon, if he uses a scroll to shut you down, swapping it, then next turn he's in combat, and you haven't got it.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Got it, so,
it was a mixed bag, but I think I'm going to try a few other bits. I mean, Teto didn't appear in my... I'm a big fan of him. He looks great on paper, especially with the reroll wands if you combo him up with a slan and things like that. But I just don't know. He looks better on paper than he usually performs. I mean, really, you're relying on the comets, which can be awesome in some games. But again, even comet against this high mobility meta is kind of difficult because everything can just either push past it or push to the side quite quickly. So, yeah, maybe I'll have a look at bringing him back into the bigger points lists. But I think I'm going to experiment around a bit and see what I can do.
I quite like him. I mean, every tournament won't let him in, but yeah, he does look a good choice. It's a fairly obvious standout choice from the book as a chance. But I always try and play around without the special characters because you never know what tournaments you're going to.
Yeah,
like the next one I go to, you can't take him. So, but yeah, interesting to find out how the lizards went. So it's good. Cool. Wayne, 4-6.
Okay. My first game on a Sunday morning was against Jack Spedding, and real mismatch for the scenario because it was Watchtower and he had Bretonians and he had no foot models in his army at all.
You were getting a little bit excited about this, weren't you?
I was.
You're trying to play it down and not be overconfident.
I was excited and I was worried because it was kind of one of them things that people were saying to me: if you lose this game,
yeah, still find a way to lose.
You're still going to get so much stick. He had the big unit of knights around 3 lords he was running. In the unit, battle standard bearer. He had a hero on a Pegasus, a small unit of Grail Knights. The big main unit he had, I think, was Knights Errant. And then he had a unit of Knights around, some Pegasus Knights, 2 Trebuchets.
He was running 3 lords?
3 lords, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, running 3 lords. One had the Ogre Blade. I can't remember what the others had, but...
I can't imagine they were that kitted up then, were they?
No, they wouldn't have been.
No, but they were enough to sort of deal with.
Yeah, it's very easy to get a 1+ save on them for a start.
Yeah, I suppose.
So I got first turn, and what I did was I put the Storm Vermin, the 36 Storm Vermin, straight in front of the Watchtower, and I marched them up, and then I put the slaves either side of him, so he could hit the slaves, but he wouldn't be able to get anything else. And then I fired the cannons into his main. I concentrated everything on his main block with his characters, and I took quite a few knights off that turn. I mean, literally, they went from a unit of, I think with the characters, it was around 15. In that lance, I was quite surprised he didn't spread them out because he left them in lances, and I put both cannons through them, and I took off. I can't remember. Yeah. I think he lost. I think in total with the whole round with Doom Rocket and everything that was going off, I think he lost a good kind of like 10 to 12 knights.
Pretty good go
in that turn. So it was
Doom Rocket that's not that good. Yeah,
that one. I kept on shooting it. I think I clipped one of the units, and in some of the games I was like working out the average and just rolling really high.
Hashtag
and
first
just
problems.
Overshooting stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so, to be fair, I always did that with mine. Sometimes I felt like dropping it, but yeah.
So I'm a Bretonian player as well. That's kind of my other big army I do. And I've come up against Wayne before, I think, down the club where he's running the Warp Lightning Cannons. And I think the problem is that obviously that it takes out lances just so easily. Yeah. It's just the best thing at taking out lances.
Especially if you drop the template.
No armor save.
If you roll it and the template goes down,
you don't even need much luck, do you, to do it?
No, that's it.
And when I was playing the Skaven, I remember playing several Bretonian players over the 70 games I played with them. And... yeah, it was just every
especially
tournament.
Even if you roll strength 2, because most of the stuff you're rolling on 5s, it's no armor saves.
And
also if you roll a strength 2, they're only getting a 6-up ward instead of a 5-up.
Yeah, so that's it.
It's big difference. But so right at the start, before we started playing, me and Jack were talking. I said, look, I'm going to get the Watchtower, and he. But it was kind of like we knew what was going to happen. So I moved the Storm Vermin into the watchtower. Jack made he didn't bother trying to assault it in any way, because obviously he couldn't take the watch. He could try to get me out, but he couldn't take it. So he just concentrated on obviously getting everything else that he possibly could, which was obviously smashing the rest of my army and picking up terrain pieces. And it was actually I'd have to say, as a proper, as a game, it was the best. Even though it was kind of on paper, it was the non-game where it was an easy win for me. It was actually the best game. It was really efficient. We rattled through our turns really quickly. We knew exactly what each one was doing. There was no rules queries. It was like really kind of precise play. We and we just played through it like quite fast actually. I mean, considering we had combats in turn 1, and they were full turns, we finished our game a lot quicker than a lot of other people there. Pretty much Jack got the rest of my army. He got into my Grace's unit. He smashed them up. There was a point where I had the option of charging the Rat Ogres into the flank of his Lord's unit with the 3. But there was another unit of Knights of the Realm in front of me, which was a longer charge. And I looked at the flank, and he wanted me to charge the flank. And I looked at him and thought, "No, I don't want to get tied up with them lords." Because I remember what happened last time when
you and me played
you,
yeah.
and then that
was like the same thing. You went in the flank.
Yeah, the heroic killing blow lord just turned around and took 3 rat ogres off.
Oh look, I've accidentally left you a flank charge. yeah.
But unless he'd done that, you would have lost the combat, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And then I thought, he's probably got stubborn. I don't know if he did actually, but I thought he's probably got a stubborn crown or something like that. So I did the charge into the other Knights of the Realm unit. Rolled an 11, I think it was. So I steamed into them, butchered those, overrun. So pretty much the Rat Ogres they killed those, and then they went into, there was a trebuchet behind, so they went into the trebuchet. So they killed that in the trebuchet, and then they kind of turned around and then kind of stayed there, because I thought, if I come too far forward, it's not really going to matter, because that unit can't take terrain, because you had to have fortitude to take a piece of terrain.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like my giant rats couldn't take, because that would have made, if I hadn't have had the giant rat units and I'd had small units of clan rats with banners, would have made a big difference in a lot of the games.
Massively.
Really was. And it put a lot more pressure on my opponent as well, because obviously he would have been aware that they can take stuff and stop him getting stuff and this kind of thing. So that would have been a big difference.
What were the trebs targeting? Was it your rat ogres or the building, or
they kept shooting the rat ogres actually. Yeah, they kept concentrating.
If it was me, I would have gone Walk Lightning Cannon first, Gracie Bunker second. That would have been
I did shoot what's the lightning cannons? I mean, it was a bit hairy at one point, because there was a giant rat unit that was fighting a Pegasus hero and a unit of knights, and they basically finished the game still fighting. Neither of them broke, but they were right near to the watchtower. So I'm thinking, well, if he breaks me, I'm going to have to take a panic test from the obviously the guys in the watchtower. And I thought he was going to break me, but he didn't. It just didn't happen. They just finished the combat and they just stayed where they were. And I thought, I could see it happen. I could see this breaking, me taking a break test, because they're only on a 5 in the watchtower, and then running out of the watchtower, and then that's it. I've actually lost.
Back on victory points then,
And not only is because like Jack picked up a lot of points for obviously the 100 points, the double points and everything.
Yeah.
No, I don't think he got. Did he get the double points? I think he did. I'm not sure actually, but he got a fair chunk of points out of it. He got like 15 or 16 points out of it. So, and then I was looking at that thinking, I'm going to get 25-0 there or 25-5 there. You know what I mean? If that unit breaks, I'm going to take a break test. But it didn't happen. So that was like, that was a close one. But really good game, really slick. Just on it. I'd love to play Jack again. Actually, I thought he was a top bloke. Really sort of. Just easy to play against, knew his stuff. There was no anything that we needed to decide, decided quickly. There was no pickiness. It was just, we got on and played.
I remember you saying afterwards that you really, really enjoyed that game, didn't
you?
you?
I did. I really enjoyed playing Jack. I'd definitely like to play him again.
Did he focus on the watchtower then? Or did he kind of say, look, you've got it, I can't get it? And then was it then like a normal game? It was like, let's ignore the watchtower and just have a normal game.
Yeah, pretty much was.
That's what the scoring system was kind of there for, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you did that, you could just go, well, I know I'm not going to win, but I can get 11 to 15 points by not doing it.
But effectively, he still for a game that he technically lost, he didn't really, because he still got a fair chunk of points out of it.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
so but he did that right from the start. He kind of looked at it and he went, because it came down to my deployment as well, because I'd put the slaves either side of the watchtower and then obviously walked the storm vermin in. He couldn't get to the storm vermin.
Yeah, that's it.
So kind of straight away he looked at it and he was like, okay, you've got that. I'm going for everything else, which he did, and he got.
Yeah.
So he played it right.
Well, I think that scoring system was a bit like that, because I had a true draw of a 14-13, and that vampire game you lost, where you actually lost, but out of everything else, you got 15.
Yeah.
And that, you'd lost the game, and you had more than me. So, depending on because of the way the scenario works. So, it wasn't the end of the world, I think, on Watchtower, if you really decided not to go for it, which is probably what I should have done as we're here in mind. But, so anyway, and game 6? And that's game 4, so game 5 and 6.
Yeah, game 6 I played unusual high elf army actually. It was Alex Reed. I played against Alex Reed, another listener show that I'd never met before, so that was great.
Hello, Alex.
Hello, Alex. Yeah, he had 2 Frost Phoenixes. He had a really big unit of Silverhelms. I think it was like 12, and then there was 4 characters in there.
Yeah,
and they had the Banner of the World Dragon.
Looked horrible.
Yeah, 2 eagles. What else do you have? 2 small units of Reavers with banners. So great, great in the scenarios. Trying to think what else he had.
There wasn't much else, was there?
I think that was pretty much it.
I mean, he must have got the award for the biggest movement tray. I
Yeah.
mean, that Silverhelm movement tray was something special,
it was massive,
wasn't it?
yeah. I mean, and I'm sort of looking at it, and I went, Banner of the World Dragon, and he kind of just looked at me, and I went, right, nothing in my army works.
No.
Nothing can touch it, And he just, he didn't want to fight the Rat Ogres because obviously the amount of attacks.
I didn't
not
think
being
your
able
army that could possibly maybe.
Ironically,
There was I killed one of the Frost Phoenixes, and there was a moment where I could have charged the slaves and the Rat Ogres into the flank of his night bus, and the slaves would have made contact. I needed to roll a 5, and they rolled a 4. So I never got, and obviously they were blocking the unit of Rat Ogres, so I never got to charge with Rat Ogres. But that could have been a real turn of events there.
Yeah, you could have lost some more points. Yeah,
because I got the storm. Yeah, I got the storm vermin into the flank of that unit early on.
Yeah,
and it took a couple of turns for him to bust me, because even though it was a big unit and he had all them characters, it ain't that all that in combat.
No, they get ground out.
And I killed one of the characters just with regular storm vermin. So, but yeah, just a really difficult game because I mean, obviously the eagles are always good. I got one of those with a flamethrower. I think I shot a flamethrower into one, and got one of the Frost Phoenixes. But didn't get many points out of it, and he had the fortitude over me, and it was. But it was, but we chatted about it. I kind of looked at it and I went, this is going to be a big struggle for me. And he's like, yeah, we played a game. But it was, not really nice guy, good game, nice army he had. He bought it off, he showed me the card actually.
Yeah, I saw that when all the armies were out for painting, it had the painting studio. I can't remember who the painting studio was, but he did have like advertising for the painting studio out as well. But it was a nice looking army, cleanly painted.
Yeah, it's one of the armies
nice
that the 3 foot look. When you looked at it up close, it was quite a clever airbrush and spraying to create shadows and
especially on the Frost Phoenix, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Zenithal Highland, they were nice actually. They were probably the best bit of the army.
Purple, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were the best bit of the army, I thought. But yeah, it was quite an interesting looking army. But yeah, strange build, but really good. I just struggled because
I think the internet's been raging a bit about the Banner of the Wild Dragon, and I think it's not because it's necessarily overpowered, although the miscast protection is the that's
what happened. He miscast with one of his wizards, and the template dropped right on the centre of it. The strength 10 template, and I'm thinking, happy days back in the game. This is brilliant. And then he turns around and goes, no, they get the ward save against that as well.
Here's my FAQ.
And he showed me, he actually showed me a highlight, and I just went.
I bet he's had that a few times.
I said, that's rubbish. He went,
cost me a whole 50 points.
That's what it is, So he's like, all right, fair enough.
The internet's been raging about this, and I think the problem is not that it's necessarily it's not an I win item, but it can create a very non-game depending on the build, can't it? And it's just a case of, I can't do anything about that. Let's see what else I can do with the rest of it, and it's a bit bizarre.
I mean, no offense to high elf players running it, but it's just a bit boring, isn't it? It's just kind of like, it just makes for a bit of a non-magic, kind of. So many things it nullifies. I mean, it's kind of.
I mean, saying that, it wasn't really such a non-game because I kept plugging away because I thought, well, I was looking at it, I thought, well, I can't see me winning this, but let's just try anyway.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity. If I'd have got their rogues into the flank of that unit, they would have murdered that unit.
Yeah,
I would, even because even if he put all the characters in going first, he wouldn't have been able to kill enough.
No,
and those rat ogres would have killed them characters, or killed loads of just Silverhelms. So that was a real turning point where it kind of like could have gone from one of those games I'm thinking I can't win this to actually like once that unit had gone. All he would have had left was one Frost Phoenix and obviously the guys with the Fortitude. Running around, I had a unit of giant rats trying to chase one of them around that, but I'm never going to get hold of them because of the way they move. But but it was we kept plugging around. It was good. It was good to meet someone someone new. And it was fine. It was it was no bother at all. But I was surprised about that miscast. It not affect if them getting on a miscast.
You have to read 2 FAQs basically, but it does. There you go. If you play against it, it does work against miscast. It's in fact, I think, the best thing about the banner. Anything else aside is
because you're not worried. You just keep 6 dice.
Just for that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, people sink kind of 30 points into re-roll miscast anyway, or 35 is it for the earthing rod?
25, but
25 is it? Yeah, I mean for the extra 25 points, it's especially when you play something like Bretonians, as I said I do, and you miscast and it takes out the whole bus of knights basically with the strength 10 hits.
Miscasts and buses,
you'll have the same issues.
I've done it so many times, and even Temple Guard.
It's horrible, but having that immunity would be mega, I think.
So the last game I played Ed Herzig, which we'd all played at this point in the tournament, and obviously I played him in the 1200. So, and Ed's got the list that you were talking about earlier because you played him in the first game,
which I actually thought would be pretty nasty for you. A level 5 Death Mage and Light Magic against you, I thought would be pretty nasty. The
magic phase was horrendous because it was just so many.
Plus, it's actually got quite a bit of shooting against toughness 3 stuff. Was quite nasty.
Yeah, and the casket is great against if they're in range of the rat ogres. Great against the rat ogres. So I'm looking at this and I think I need to rush him. I need to chase all these like little banners down because it was the break the fortitude point, and I only had fortitude of 5. So basically, I was losing as soon as it went down to 3. The game ends, and I managed to get his sepulchral stalkers.
Yeah.
I managed to get those. That was a bit of a grind combat with some giant rats, and he had a giant. Which you got to come in which one it was, but he had that in the side of the giant rat. So they kind of broke eventually, and then I had a unit of storm vermin had broke, and the rat ogres were he kept obviously offering stuff up to the rat ogres to sort of deflect them where he wanted them. I managed to get round, and I got both the skull chuckers, and I was trying to pick up banners, but eventually he got his snakes into my Greyseers unit, and obviously as soon as the Greyseer died, that was it, game over, it just ended.
We should say about this, right? I was in the bar, and I kept coming back because my gamers were here, ended quite quick in that round.
Yeah.
And I kept coming back and having a look. I could see you you looked like you were going to lose. So I walked back in the bar and I'm looking on my phone, and you're a Manchester United fan, football fan, aren't you?
Yeah.
And so I was standing in the bar and I was talking to a few people. And I was like, oh, look, Man United lost to Man City, which is kind of like their derby. It's the one game of the year you wouldn't want to lose. And I goes, Wayne looks like he's going to lose in a minute. I'm going to stick the boot in. So I waited till your fortitude broke, and then Wayne, do you want to know something? He's like, what? I was like, you lost 4-1 to Man City. I'm off.
He sort of kicked me in the groin and then walked off. Yeah,
that's the kind of thing we brothers do. Wayne.
Yeah. End that tournament on a high.
Just to let you know. Yeah. So, but that did seem like a good game actually that you played.
And I made a big mistake in that game because what I could have done, the storm vermin had rallied. No, sorry, they hadn't rallied. But what I could have done, I could have tried to skit leap him out of the unit to obviously, try and save something. But it's just that beginning of snakes. I needed to get the rat ogres into the snakes, and Ed just stopped me because he had the scouting cavalry and stuff like that. And obviously the downside to the rat ogres is where they're frenzied. You go into the combat, you have to overrun. You can't reform. So that's the tricky bit about it.
It was an interesting game that because I looked across and you were right in his deployment zone, but ultimately it had nothing to do with it, did it?
Didn't matter.
You were there, but he had the one unit of snakes just kept ploughing towards your fortitude, and you didn't have much, did you? So I mean, we talked about it. You almost brought none, did you, or next to none? You weren't really bothered. So, but after the event, were you bothered? About fortitude, like you say, you would have changed it up for some giant.
Yeah, I would have changed. Yeah. My army would have been very different, actually.
Same here,
I really wish that they put the scenarios up before the list went in, because what I think it would have done is, the top players would have taken their lists regardless, right? But because there were so many hobby boys there, I think you would have seen some really far more diverse lists. You know, as interesting as some of them were, because of the scenarios, I think you would have seen a lot of quirky stuff. You know, stuff that you don't normally see. Like the Skaven players might take some small units of plague monks. You know,
get quite creative. With ways of getting
much
banners
more creative.
in there.
To get the banners in and stuff like that. So I think that would have. I mean, I'm not saying that's what they should do, but I just think it would have promoted better lists. Because what happened in effect was not putting the scenarios up. The armies that really smashed you, like the Chaos Warrior armies and the Demon armies to a certain extent, they would have the normal build, most of them.
They just put banners on the units,
and they just smashed people anyway.
So everything that's good in their army basically can take a banner anyway. So it's kind of, they didn't need to change
and
up
the
much.
fortitude, the single characters count as fortitude was their other thing.
Yeah.
You had a 3-at-war BSB was one, and the Flying Demon Prince was 2. So all flying.
Whereas if the weaker armies, if you like, had been able to structure their armies to the scenarios better, it might have created. I'm not saying it would have, but it might have created more balance. Because even though the warrior armies would have been smashing, because you'd had more banners and more opportunity to take the scenarios, you know, that could have balanced it.
Yeah, I mean, we look at...
and it would have been nice to play some practice games before knowing
definitely.
what you were doing. You know what I
it
mean?
would have helped with the time limit, I think,
absolutely.
as well, the games. So we'll talk about my 3, and then I'll talk to you some more about that particular point. So, my game 4... it was Watchtower, and I'd another Warriors. So I'd played Tomb Kings, which was a bit of a gimme in terms of matchup first turn, and then I had Warriors, then Demons, then it was Warriors again, and Warriors in Watchtower. And I thought, this is fine. If it's anything like the Warriors list I played earlier, won't have any Warriors in it, not a problem. It had 20 Nurgle Halberds, which didn't win the roll to go in the Watchtower. I went in first, and we were joking about it. There's several dice rolls where this game could change, and I won the one to go in the building, which I thought, great. That's okay. It's not ideal. I actually think going second would have been better, but I thought, okay, it's fine. Because anybody who doesn't know, if you've ever seen it, swift reforming into a building, you can ultimately, if you've got a block, and it's not massive, you can swift reform into a 2-wide conga. And just move 4 inches first turn. It completely wrecks the scenario. So I thought, well, if he gets first turn, he can swift reform into the building anyway. So I put my zombies in to make him charge. Then if he rolls less than a 7, he's wasted a turn. I've got a chance to raise into the zombies. There's a good chance. So I was okay. I thought, okay, that's fine. But to be honest, I just made a couple of mistakes in a few places and delayed myself for 2 turns. It was unlikely, but I could have stopped it. So his 5 Marauder Horse charged into a ghoul unit. But only could clip. A dog unit. I think they countered with my ghouls, which was fine. But I could only get a couple in, and he held like on a 4 or something. And then rather than reform to make sure they died, I thought, that's all right. It'd be on load and minus again. And he was, but he still passed the next turn, and it blocked my bus up. It went on for about 3 combats. It was horrible. Which cost me a turn of killing the building. But long story short, I finally got into the Nurgle Warriors. I had to commit my Vampire Lord, which I wasn't too happy about, because you can put half the models onto one character, so you just put half the models all the time on the Vampire Lord. Eventually he will go away. It doesn't take a lot of dice when he's dismounted to kill him. So but I put everything in. I put both vampire characters in, and I Doom and Darkness them, destroyed them out the end of the building. So there's like 8-9 dudes left. The Terror guys had a scream beforehand to try and get rid of him. I threw that away as well, for just to do exactly what your opponent did actually, Mike, which is try and get an early scream just to get rid of it, and White had full strength and try and make a dent in it. I think what I should have done actually is just gone for VPs and just try to smash everything and come back for it if time, and played the Terrorgeist a lot more defensively. But again, it's not playing the scenario with the army. I mean, this was my... at this point, I think it was about my 11th game with vampires in the new book or something. So that's quite a lot for some people, but for me, it's not really a lot. So finally managed to get a unit of zombies in the tower. So turn 6 and 7, I had the tower, and it didn't end. The game didn't end. But then turn 8, Tom managed to get back in and finally get in the tower. But we destroyed each other outside this tower, warriors on vampires. There was like a vampire and a man or something left, and like these 9 warriors and like a crusher and a BSB on a wound or something. It was literally nothing left. It was an absolute epic game, probably the best game of the weekend. But I still come away thinking that scenario shouldn't be in a tournament. That's a fantastic thing if you're down a club. It's brilliant and a really good story. But ultimately, it was actually really decided on a couple of dice rolls. So we were just going through the motions. But really, really good game. Really, really enjoyed it. So
because Watchtower can finish on a turn 4, can't it?
Yeah. So it went to turn 8.
Yeah.
And if it had finished at 6, either one. I think he was in it 5 and 6, and then I was in it
7.
No, sorry, he was in 4 and 5. I was in 6 and 7, and then 8 he was back in. So yeah, crazy game, but yeah, good fun. So yeah, so I thought, okay, I've lost. It should be fine now. There should be something easy to play. So it's Warriors again, and I played a guy named Mark who actually finished 3rd on battle points. And I looked at the list, and I thought that I can't lose this game. There was no Demon Prince. It was a Flying Disc Lord with a Hellfire Sword, a Chimera, a couple of units of Blood Crushers, a couple of units of Marauder Horse with banners, and a big block of Zinch Warriors with Helm Up and Shield, with 2 Metal Mages and a Battle Standard. So I thought the 2 Metal Mages are a problem, but I've got Scroll of Shield in MR, should be all right. But Plague of Rust could be irritating or whatever. And what happened was that I played like an absolute idiot. I started all right, and then I started to panic about the Marauder Cav, because this one was get your Fortitude in their deployment zone, wasn't it? This particular one.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to pretty much stop the Warriors getting in mine. And again, I started to panic about the Demon Prince. He put both Marauder Cav units wide. They ran down the sides. And I made a mistake with my Terrorgeist. And I don't normally make mistakes with redirecting. I can't remember the last time I made a mistake with redirecting. But something untoward happened. I think I rolled exceptionally high and vaped the unit with the Scream. 3 Blood Crushers dead outright. I think a Doom and Darkness as well, so it helped. And had just left a tiny few mil gap, and it got killed by a unit of Blood Crushers, and that was my only way to deal with the Chimera and the other units, because the Flail Horseman went straight through both units of zombies of mine and put both banners in his deployment zone. He had a Flying Disc Lord for 2, so I had to try and do something, and I made another mistake where I basically charged a combat and pursued a Blood Crusher unit when I should have held, and I'm not going to go into the massive details, but it was small things, and I was so annoyed. And I don't know what it is about game 5 of a tournament and 6th game. Game 5, I'm always grumpy. I get I think it's because you've just you're starting to get hungry, or you've just eaten and you're a bit grumpy. I played Warriors again, and I was just and I started to get grumpy. I think I was okay, but I was just I could feel myself getting frustrated with myself for playing badly.
And you were quite high table, weren't you, as well? You were doing quite well, weren't you?
Yeah, I was always playing around the 10, sort of 10, table 10.
So it's tough games anyway.
Yeah, but I was just more annoyed myself. I thought I had the opportunity to win that game several times over, and I made bad mistakes in about 3 different places that cost me it. So at the end of it, it was very easy to go, it was a scenario, and I did feel like I was on the back foot on the scenario, but I also felt it was well in my control. I just played badly. There's nothing more you can say about it. It's just inexperience with the army. So, yeah, that was that. Congrats to Mark. He smashed me up in the end. He killed the Vampire Lord. The Chimera went in the back of the Knight unit and took 6 models off, and that crumbled all on res, and it died. So
the Vampire died just on res, not in combat.
Yeah. They're laughing at my notes of the 6th game. So the 6th game, I thought, well, it's Blood and Glory. I should be now playing further down the tables. This should be a nice free win, is what I thought in my head. So I turned up and I'm playing Ogres. I thought, actually, Ogres, I don't know how this goes with Vamps, but I remember when they came out, I played Vamps just for a bit in the old book, and it was fairly okay. There wasn't a lot they could do. This should be fine. So I played Greg Dan from the Hydra Club, and he had just a Gutstar unit of 6 Sniper Man-Eaters, 2 Iron Blasters, unit Mornfang, and I thought, okay, well, I don't really fancy the Gutstar. Inevitably, he's going to have the Hellheart, so all I'll do is I'll probably end up losing half the bus at least. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll go in, kill the Mornfang, kill the Iron Blasters, win by 100 points, and we'll call it there, and I'll just go home. That was how I felt at that point. So I moved up, had got was about to get one of the Iron Blasters that's in combat, got some other peripheral bits, and I overran into a unit of 3 Mornfang. He pops the Hellheart, gets the dice he needs, Vampire Lord, cascades, falls down a hole, dies. Other vampire templates, kills all the knights. The other one templates, kills the knights, and kills both of himself and the character next to him. So the whole bus, including all 3 characters, dead. End of game, Blood and Glory. That was it. It was literally a 20-minute game. And I didn't know what to say at that point. I was just like... Pfft.
You didn't look happy.
No.
I'm not going to lie.
The problem is, you travel all that way, and you just don't get to play the game. And
how does Hellheart work again?
Oh, basically, you roll an artillery dice, times it by 3 or 4, is it? Can't remember.
3, I think it is.
Yeah, and every wizard in that range automatically miscasts.
So you just have to roll a miscast.
So you roll a miscast for each one?
Yeah.
For every wizard.
Yeah, so 3 wizards.
So basically,
so if they all get a template, like you say, it just kills them.
Yeah.
So normally you would just power it into the middle, kind of the middle, so it'll hit as many mages as possible.
Yeah.
Roll the dice and just watch them blow themselves up, basically.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's pretty nasty, the vampire bus, because you've got loads in, but as long as the Lord and the battle standard don't cascade,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. The two of them, because
got the
that's what
magic
Greg
res.
was saying when we talked about it after. He says that he was actually a bit worried about killing all the knights and having no way of getting any res off me, and then the vampire lord and his mate just go through and just kill all the units. I thought that's what happened. I thought I'll go early, because you can sometimes see, like, if you get away with it and you don't have many knights die, it's like, if you roll 7 a couple of times or power drain or something, and just lose levels, it can be fine.
Yeah.
So I thought, that's probably fine. But literally, the Cascade of the Lord was ending the game as it was. But then the other two killing themselves and the knights was just stupid set of dice. But
your Lord's about 600 points, isn't it? So it's kind of...
And of course, it's all the fortitude was in the bus. So the banner died, the BSB died, and the general died. So I only had 2 zombie units end of the game. Disappointing, really. When that item came out, I didn't like it for exactly that reason. I don't like those kind of nothing in the game ends a game like that does, and unfortunately it's because it's vampires, and it's the one problem I've always had with vampires is if you lose the Lord through bad luck, you've lost the game you shouldn't lose sometimes. And in that case, we never got to find out if I should have lost or not. So that was that, really.
I mean, I guess that's really the advert for why we have comp, I guess, because when you're travelling that far for a tournament and something and you just have a complete non-game, it's like, I mean, this argument's been raised before when you work out how much you spend money-wise over the weekend.
Like 30 odd quid a game, doesn't
exactly.
it?
And then when you have a game like that, it's just kind of like, and I mean, that's why personally I prefer a game kind of comped, so that you just don't have those non-games, because people are travelling for this. They need to make sure that they're having a game.
I'll just say, when I was playing Alex Reed, and if I forgot this, it's quite a big thing actually. When in the first turn, when I was looking at the kind of, because you got 1 point for each fortitude that was in your deployment zone, and you got 2.
Oh, that was in the ball quarters one. Yeah. Sorry, I should say that. I haven't mentioned that either. That game that I said I played badly in was that one. So it was still fortitude delivering it into different zones, but it wasn't either deployment.
So what I decided to do, because I thought, well, combat-wise, I can't really take anything on because of that bus. And the Frost Phoenixes and everything else. So what I decided to do, which for me was actually I was quite impressed with, because I don't normally think that far ahead. I thought, right, there's a building, there's like a watchtower there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move up, and next turn I'm going to walk my general into that unit, because he's all mounted. He won't shift me. No. So I got my general safe. It's in my quarter, so there's 2 points. I'll just get what I can out of the game. That's what I decided to do. So I move up to this building, and he's not in a position to charge me or get me with anything, right? So he moves up, and then he casts Dwellers on my general's unit. At which point, then I failed with the Greyseer, the BSB, the level 0 Warlock, and half the unit. Just lost them. First turn, boom, lot gone. And then the unit did walk into, but it's like 1 fortitude in the thing. So even that was kind of like, as soon as he moved up one of his cavalry units, if he wanted to, it wouldn't have mattered. And that was it, really. That was it's like, someone said the game was over, but it was boom. It was like so sudden.
That's why I got, the warrior one that I said, this game we're talking about, that was the game. And that happened to me. Final transmutation before I moved, my battle standard died on a 6. And that's one of my fortitude gone. So the chances of having enough fortitude to stop the warrior army was pretty much nil, which is why I played really aggressive. But
I mean, but one thing to say there is, I mean, I know it's very out of date, but even the latest South Coast GT comp, Dwellers isn't comped, is it?
No,
that could happen on the South. What you're just explained could happen on the South Coast. And I mean, I guess one thing to say is, and I mean, I know Skaven are kind of limited in that, but you did have, 3 characters in a unit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I think the uncomped Dwellers, that's the argument for having it uncomped, is like, don't stick 3 characters in one unit.
I think he's in a position where I've got this really fast moving army in front of me, and I had a portion of the board where he couldn't get to me. So I stuck my characters there, because I thought if I can get him into the building, I knew we had Dwellers, but I thought if I can get him into the building, I've actually got a chance of getting some points out of the game.
Yeah.
Above the 5 for the lost, So that was the whole kind of game plan. And to be honest, I mean, I didn't expect to, maybe lose 1 character or something, but not, just literally just boom, 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 and that was it.
No.
So, it was kind of like, oh, okay.
I am a fan of those spells being
uncomp
though, because I think, I mean, obviously we did see a big rise in the bus, and obviously the bunkers and things like that, and just so many safe characters and safe points. That
I think it's better when you get a lookout surfing those spells, but,
Yeah, it's one of those.
I can see the arguments both ways.
I can. Because obviously if you're doing that to someone and you get that out of the game and you win the game, then obviously you're happy about it, aren't you? You're happy to do that. But obviously, you're from the receiving end. It's a totally different. You've got a totally different point of view on it. So that's just the way it is.
Definitely. Yeah, I think there's arguments for both. It just depends on how you want to run your events and what you enjoy. I didn't enjoy getting final transmutated, but I also understood that I did have 3 characters in one unit. There was nowhere else for them to go. They're all mounted, and that's I haven't even moved, so there was nowhere really they could go. But
that's sort of a weakness in your army, though, isn't it? I mean,
I accept that. Again, the only problem with it, and it's just the weakness of the army, is if he rolls a 6 on the Vampire Lord turn 1, the game's over.
Yeah. But again, you've got so many points in your Vampire Lord. It's like that's
it's just more the crumbling rules. But
exactly.
Well, actually, if he does it turn 1, it's not necessarily over, but it's a very, very uphill struggle because it nearly is. So that was that. So was that all your games?
Yeah.
So that's all your games. I've told you about all my games, and Mike's told you about all his. Interesting wrap up. So in the end, Mike, where did you finish? Do you know?
I think about 10th from the bottom.
Yeah, Wayne, you were propping up not too far from there.
I was 10 places below you, wasn't I?
Yeah, so you were about 58, I think, and I ended up being 48 in the end when the end result came out. So absolute dire for me. But when I look back on it, I just played badly in some games. I'd say the scenarios had a massive amount to do with it, but also my own play in places wasn't particularly crisp. And I was talking to Russ Veal about this, and I've sort of come to this decision about vampires, is that I think they're a little bit of a finesse army in a way, with the way the meta's gone. Like, they're not very forgiving. So if you make they're a solid army, and I think potentially they're really good. I'm kind of want to play more with them to really see what the potential is. But there's a lot of different options you can do with them as well. So it's quite a fun book. But ultimately, if you make a couple of wrong choices, you're stuck and you die. And that's Warhammer legend Al Thompson, for long-term listeners, will remember him saying it. Oh, they've always been a bit like that. Although sometimes in some editions they've had the power, but to go through it. But interesting. What about, how do we enjoy it overall then? How did you enjoy it, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it's I suppose it's difficult to get your best sort of enjoyment out of it when you're getting utterly hammered. So I had a wooden spoon finish and a kind of 10th from bottom. Kind of my own fault. I can't really kind of blame the tournament organisers for that. I mean, I know that some of the packs were released late. Some of the scenarios weren't released till quite late in the day. But to be honest, I didn't have a lot of time for personal reasons at that time, to turn around kind of a list appropriate and get the painting done, etc., that I would have needed to. But I think the social aspect of it was great. I really liked the venue. We had a good time kind of meeting new people, and kind of Graham, who ended up hanging out with us, that was good fun. But yeah, I mean, I think that the problem is when you've got a limited amount of time, I felt like I was rushing all of my games, because I knew after the first game or two where we didn't get to finish that I had to rush it. And I don't really enjoy playing Warhammer when I'm super rushed. I prefer having a more laid-back game. Those are the kind of games I enjoy, club games. And I know that's not possible to have like really long games, but certainly the scenarios didn't help. I would say that I'm probably not a fan of playing out of the rulebook Warhammer, and it is nice to do something different. But for someone like me who only attends kind of, say, 3 tournaments a year, I don't really feel like I need the change in pace and the change in rule pack to keep it interesting for me. So for me, I mean, I would love to go back and play that as battle line, and maybe the side events stay as scenarios, because then you have got something that spices it up. But I think the main event would be better staying as battle line. But yeah, no, really good fun. I think, for considering it's the first time they've done it, I thought it was run really smoothly, and there was lots of little fun side things they were constantly doing, and the team were really good and really helpful, and and I had some great opponents, to be honest, which is all I really ever asked for from a tournament. 6 great opponents and no issues, so it's
great stuff. Good. What about you, Wayne?
It was an eye opener in some respects, where I was expecting to enjoy it with the scenarios. I enjoyed the 1200 more than I thought I would. Met some new people, which is always great. Had some really great games. Kind of learnt as well, because like with the painting, I've done well. Obviously, I've done well in the 1200, and I'd picked up a couple of trophies in that, and it was a much smaller field. It was only like 18 players in that. And then in the main event, because obviously I was sort of disappointed with what happened at Pillage, I was kind of thinking, well, let's get on. And when we got to like the painting side of it, there was 3 trophies in appearance, which was players' votes, and then there was 3 choices in the judges, which was purely on like looking at it closely and judging on painting. So the winners of those, very much deserved, and they got theirs. And I'll come away with the tournament afterwards, and it wasn't like disappointed in the sense that I thought, I've come away with nothing again. What it did, it opened my eyes, and I thought, do you know what? I've been running this army. I've been adding to it constantly in that, but I've been running this army for a while now. And what I need to do is pull my finger out. I need to paint a new army. I need to make it as good as I possibly can because I want to compete in painting. And it's really given me a kick out the backside because I'm just thinking now, my army, 2 reasons. One, everyone's seen it and everyone knows it. It's been around for a while. And 2, it's just not good enough. I need to sort of do something that's going to sort of, if I want to compete in this, I need to turn up with something at a tournament that's really going to make people sort of look and go, wow, and that's, so for me, that's what I want to do now. I need to just sort of nail down, stop the hobby wobbles, nail down what I want to do, get on with it, and actually produce an army over the next, hopefully, year and a bit that's going to be, it's going to contend with painting again, because that's, fundamentally, that's what I want to do. So from that said, I really took that out of the tournament. I really took that out of kind of like, come on, you need to do something about this. It's all, it's at the end of the day, it's down to me. If I'm good enough to win more painting trophies, I need to do it and I need to get on with it. And that was the biggest thing I took from Blood and Glory, and that was a really positive thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing from a feedback perspective I would have said about the painting is I really felt that on the player's choice, there should have been 2 or 3 boxes, so you could pick 2 or 3 choices. Yep. Because I think a lot of people, Martin Parker's Ogre Army, we should say, massive
great,
shout out.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Great. Amazing display board that really told a story.
Yeah, that was really good.
You can probably find, I'd imagine Bad Dice and the Blood and Glory guys have got the pictures up somewhere on their website, but amazing army and such a deserving winner. But I think so many people must have voted for that. How do you pick the remaining 2?
That's
I don't know. It comes down
to
one odd vote here and there, probably, as in somebody just randomly picked somebody else. But I imagine if there was a top 3, there'd be much. I think the result is truer on that. That would be my only thing. I might be some statistic buff might tell me not, but I got the feeling as a player that me being able to write one name on it was not justice enough. I wanted to write 2 or 3.
Yeah, same here. I got that feeling as well. I mean, when you saw that Ogre Army, I mean, the display board had 2 sides that were as tall as the base were, wouldn't it? And so he'd done an amazing job, like comets flying around the board.
There was a river on it. There was the cave entrance. It actually looked like at the sort of the kind of the sort of dungeon entrance, because when you looked into it, it actually had a bit of depth to it, and it was really dark. And then it had the building with the Stonehorn smashing through, and there was a girl in a bath inside. I mean, this Stonehorn was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, the Stonehorn was just there for decoration. Yeah. It wasn't even a model in his army. It was just there for decoration. I mean, he'd gone to town on his display board, and I'm not surprised it got so many votes. But that's what I think, when you have something that was such a standout and he put so much effort into it, especially what seemed like for the event. Then as Dan said, I think it's kind of when 95% of people are voting for that, it's kind of like the other.
But there was Dan Quirks as well. His
was nice.
He had a Chaos Warrior army, kind of sort of looks like a Zench theme. There was a lot of blue in it, and that was technically that was the best painted army there. I mean, that was the one I voted for, and even though I really like the ogres, I voted for that army because it was the kind of, when you got right up close to it, I thought technically it was the best. It was the best painted army there. And
Annie's got a good look in as well, didn't I? I think Annie pulled a trophy away for the Chaos Gnomes we mentioned earlier, and I think a lot of that was, I mean, it's a bit of a Marmite army. You either like it or you don't, but she did put a lot of little quirky notes and things up with it, which put that extra bit of effort, which was quite funny. I chuckled. I think I took a picture of one. It had like a sign on the Kadai that says "Rage Quit 30 miles," right, or something like on a sign. Which I just think it's quite chuckle.
She's redone her basin as well. The basin
was fantastic.
I think the basin's the best bit about the army. That's the
all the little flowers, isn't it? Like a meadow all the way through it, basically, and all these little flowers and bits.
I mean, it's a Marmite. I mean, the colour scheme and the whole farmyard animals. I'll be honest, it's not for me.
It's not for me either.
I couldn't imagine you with that army anyway, Wayne. Don't worry.
I'm not a fan. But the basin, where because I said to her, have you redone the basin? She said, yeah, she'd added stuff to it and put like flowers and stuff, and it's really nice. It's really busy, loads going on.
I just like the effort in the whole army. As I say, personally, I'm not a fan of that kind of whole, sheep in Warhammer type thing, but the actual effort with all the little signs and the quirky bits, I love that.
All the characters had names,
and that's what's missing for me from the scene. It's not quality painting, it's effort, and that sings effort to me. So congrats to all the winners. Actually, I thought it was a really good showing on the painting front, so that was good. And how did you find the scenarios overall, Wayne, from your perspective?
I think it was just down to if we'd known what they were going to be and we could have designed the list a bit more cleverly and had a few practice games, I think it would have made for everyone, if they'd done that, I think it would have made for a far more tactically challenging weekend. because everyone would have been geared up for it and everyone would be playing the scenarios. And I think you would have seen some really different play where you you're not actually looking to smash each other up. You're looking to actually play the scenarios, and it would make for a much more tactical game. I think that would have been a plus. I can understand why Ben did it, because obviously he wanted to mix things up and he wanted there to be a kind of a surprise for people, and then maybe having to adapt on the weekend, which is pretty much what we had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't want everybody breaking the scenarios, basically.
Yeah,
did he?
But the problem was the top armies like Warriors, they break it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that then.
You know,
so there's a massive myth, I think, around that scenarios balance Warhammer.
No, they don't.
You know, and
they don't balance Warhammer.
I've got in front of me the average results for the armies, okay, and the top two averages by some margin were demons and warriors, and certainly I played 3 warriors and a demon, and I felt they were just incredibly good under the system. I think with more notice, if they said you need mobile fortitude, you're going to need to deliver your fortitude into a certain place, and you're going to need fortitude as a whole. You know, you might have had a bit more of an option, but ultimately, I don't think scenarios went any way whatsoever to balancing those warriors' armies in with the field.
No,
I think it's a complete and utter myth. Completely.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that in fact, it just highlighted what those armies were good at. So, number one, the Warriors list that we're pushing around at the moment were already highly mobile, were already a lot of fortitude. Like, if you kind of took a standard tournament game and then kind of applied a scenario to it, I think they would have come out on top for just a standard kind of battle line. And it's kind of the thing is, it's kind of when for example, I'm obviously biased because I'm running the Lizardman, but I kind of standardly sit back, shoot, and magic. And the problem is, so many of them required you to get across the board, which my Lizardmen just don't do, because they're not kind of monstrous cavalry that are crashing into you and these kind of thing. They're a kind of a finesse army that kind of will try and create the skink cloud of death around you, and it just didn't work. And I mean, maybe I could have written a lizard list that would work, but it was kind of all these warrior players and things. I just felt started off on a massive kind of advantage of basically they were already doing what they needed to do.
Yeah.
So
I certainly feel that way, and I think the averages helped to show you that. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of armies there, but you know, there was 14 warriors players, 10 demons. There's also 10 high elves though, and they were 4th from bottom on the average. And vampires were the 4th highest army or 5th highest army on 7 armies in attendance at the 85, and they finished absolutely rock bottom, quite a mile down on the average. And there was a bit of discussion actually in the Warhammer forum about, are they actually that bad in uncomped Warhammer? And I didn't feel they were that bad at all. I actually thought
you've got to take into account who's playing them. I mean, you know, I played 2 VC players who was both their first tournaments.
Yeah.
They were relatively inexperienced tournament players, and they both rocking VC.
Yeah.
So obviously you got you, who's like, you know, is experienced. You know,
he's all right.
he's yeah. And then you got, you know,
results don't say that. Yeah.
You got Chris and Ian, who, no disrespect to them, but they you know, this is a new experience for them. So they're kind of learning how it works.
I think Chris
and
finished bottom, didn't he?
Yeah,
so that helped.
Yeah, and I don't know where Ian finished, but I mean, because he had sort of up and down games. So you know, but obviously it's a new thing. So
one place above me actually.
So how many VC armies were there?
There were 7 at the 85, yeah.
So 7. So, you know, 2 of them are played by inexperienced players. And I'd imagine, you know, that's got to knock it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
it's all very well having the statistics like that.
Yeah.
But if you've got, like, you know, let's just say there was, out of the 7, you were the unexperienced VC player. They're going to be rock bottom.
Yeah, and I wasn't experienced. I'd only played, well, by the end of the tournament, I played 14 games, and that was including 3 at 1200. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's with the 8th edition book. But yeah, my answer to it was I didn't feel like my army couldn't compete. I actually felt against the Warriors and stuff was pretty good. I felt I didn't play very well in a couple of games. I made mistakes. And the other one was just the scenarios. I didn't have enough support units to deal with. I had an army which I thought could deal with Warriors okay, but what I didn't deal with was 2 units of Marauder Cav hiding in the corners and things. It needed more support units. It needed Vargeists. It needed maybe 2 Terrorgeists. You know, these things that can... Because if you got rid of the Marauder units... I actually can fight the rest of it head on. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because they have to beat me to cause it a problem. But just little small tweaks. So I actually said on the Warhammer forum, I would have liked another go at the scenarios, actually. I think it would have been all right.
You were looking at Hex Race even at one point, weren't you?
Yeah, Hex Race. I think you could have done loads of different stuff. I mean, that's the beauty of the Vampire book. But you could have done a lot of different stuff knowing the scenarios about how you operated it. So, I don't know. I don't think they were as bad as in answer. And it was just an interesting one, actually, because overall it looked like a reasonable average. You know, you had Demons, Warriors, Lizardmen were actually the third highest average, which was pretty good.
Dragging them down.
Empire, Dark Elf, Orc and Goblins, Ogre, Bretonnian, Chaos Dwarf, Skaven were in the sort of bottom pack, just at the top of the bottom pack. Tomb Kings, High Elves, Beastmen, Dwarfs and Vampires. It's not a surprise to see Dwarfs near the bottom because I just don't think you've got any chance of mobile banners on Dwarfs. So, but yeah.
Just in case anyone thought we left them out, there weren't any Wood Elf players in the tournament, were there?
No, there weren't any. But
I
actually,
think someone got the best Wood Elf trophy from playing it in the
500
point event.
Yeah, skirmish. Yeah,
one guy played it there.
But oddly, I actually think Wood Elves wouldn't have been that bad. I reckon you would have seen them higher than Dwarfs, possibly even higher than Beastmen. So
we need Mark Borland to crack them out again.
Yeah, we need somebody to get.
He was running the Beast this tournament, wasn't he?
Yeah, I can imagine it gets extremely frustrating though. So yeah, overall, it's an interesting statistics, that one. But overall, from my point of view, I really like the scenarios. I thought it was refreshing. I mean, I play a lot of tournaments. I've just come back from the ETC where you're playing pitch battle and it can be so boring. So actually, it was really nice to play the scenarios. I know there's a mixed camp on the should you know, should you not beforehand. But I honestly think you should, hands down. I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I'm just saying that I'm right. No, I'm not. For me, I want the best chance. I pay a lot of money, as we all do, to go to a tournament. I want the best chance of success. I don't feel like I had the best chance of success this weekend at all. Despite how I played. If I'd had the scenarios in advance, I could have done that. My only other feedback was that, and I've spoken to Ben about this personally, and he said, that was an oversight, we did all this effort for the painting and the display boards, everything else, but the trophies that are actually given out on the weekend for best in race and 1, 2, 3 and all the rest of it were only given purely on battle points.
See, I think that was a bit of a howler.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the whole tournament was kind of sold as it was something different. It was a hobby weekend, not only a tournament. You had the seminars. It was all about the hobby as a whole. And then on the side events, you do, you add the fluff scores in, which is why I didn't finish bottom. And then you go to the main event and you don't add them. And I think that's a pretty big mistake.
Yeah, I mean, they added
because you're kind of like saying it's a hobby weekend, but when we get to the end of the nitty gritty bit, we won't do it that way. Yeah. We'll do it, and it reverts to like every other tournament. And I thought it was a real shame they did that.
Yeah, I did. I thought it was a very shame. I think speaking to Ben, I'm sure we'll cover it on his own show, but I think he's aware of this. But they did, to be clear, they did add it in the overall. So the print that you got that says I finished 48, you finished wherever, was based on those scores. But the actual trophy, so if you only turn up and you don't care about rankings, which actually most people don't care, I'd say the majority of people don't care about rankings, then you're only interested in taking away silverware, aren't you? So like Andy Potter, who finished third overall, didn't get a trophy because he didn't finish third. He finished third overall, but he wasn't the best on battle points for third place. Yeah. So Mark, who I played, got the trophy, which I find odd because you spent all that time doing all the extras to get all your points, and it means nothing except for a rankings point, basically. So I just think it was an oversight.
Like, I would have been absolutely gutted. You know, say like with best in race, say like I don't know, like Rob Hallam got best in race for skating, right? So say like that we weren't close, but let's just say we were close, right? And it was like on battle points, it was like there was hardly anything in it, but it was just ahead. Yeah, and then on painting, sportsmanship scores, everything else, because of the way this tournament's been promoted, I had all that, and then I went top scaling. So you kind of got it because of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that would be brilliant. And also, the fact that, if I'd have got there, I didn't take a bell and stuff like that to the rattle. That's that whole sense of achievement. You go, I got best scaling with a different list, and all my scores were added, like for the painting and everything else.
Well, I kind of feel
like why? Yeah. If you're going to run that kind of event where it really is promoting the hobby, which is brilliant, I love that side of it. I thought that was spot on, excellent. See it through. See it through to the end.
It's like the sports scores. We were worried and joking when we interviewed Ben about. I was worried about taking an infantry army of vampires that relied on me conga lining because I was worried about the sports scores. And I actually was really pleased with my sports score. I got max. I think it was 36 on it. It was the max you get. I got max, which was great. I look at some of the podium places and they're on 33, 34s. But it didn't make any difference. They wouldn't have lost. They could have got 0 in all their games, and they would have got a trophy at the end of it. And for me, that was just a big oversight. And I'm sure. I know Ben is aware of it, so I'm sure
the biggest trophy was still 4 combined, though, wasn't it? The gen
overall was
overall.
Yeah. But so the actual first, second, third trophies weren't, and nor was best in race. I don't think so. Well, I'm pretty sure it wasn't. So that was it. That would be my only really negative feedback. I mean,
because the best in race is definitely. Well, it all should be all combined. Because it should be like, who's the best, full stop.
At the system.
The player,
it's the system, isn't
the
it?
painter, the soft scores, the sportsmanship scores. It should be, who's the best, as a whole.
It is worth saying though that we did touch on it for the 1,200 points, but the prize support was awesome.
Oh yeah, it was brilliant.
Really good. I mean, they had just so many boxes of models and just kind of
all the sort of
fantastic
smaller ones,
trophies. And
you could pick up like the plastic characters. You got one of those, didn't you, Dan?
Yeah,
plastic characters.
For the second place in the 1,200. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you had like scenery. They were doing all this different kinds of scenery for obviously for the placings in the main event and spot prizes. Like I said, I've got those Mantic Ogres, which I've used a couple of guys on the Chaos Chariots. They're actually quite nice models.
Yeah.
And I thought, the support was brilliant. And it was, to be fair, I didn't pick up too many negatives from it. And considering it was Ben's first tournament and the undertaking of everything he wanted to do, like with the seminars and the whole hobby weekend and to kind of keep it, it was a proper tournament, but keeping it
old school,
trying to keep it old school, and friendly, trying to keep it, fun, and I think over the, largely he succeeded really, really well, and I have to say, well done. Even though I just sort of I gave you a knock on the whole, the way the scores were done at the end, but I'd have to say overall. I think him and his team done a great job that weekend.
Yeah.
I think it was a big plus. I'm really looking forward to going next year already, because I just thought that's the kind of event I like. I like the fact that they've taken everything into account.
I think as well, everybody does this on their first event. We know from being experienced TOs, you learn so much in the first year that I'm sure that they'll just tweak it to make it even better. It doesn't need massive overhauls.
Yeah.
I think my only real bugbear that I had with the event in terms of how it was run is that the ticket was, what was it, 32 for the ticket, wasn't it? And one thing that I was a little bit surprised at when we got there was that lunch wasn't included, which felt kind of quite expensive for it. It must be one of the more expensive tournaments I've gone to. And as I say, when you're already travelling up however long and paying for a hotel and things like that can be a bit...
Yeah, I never get that, and I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because for me, I'm not bothered. I've paid 55 quid for a Games Workshop GT, although you do get 3 meals. But so I saw a few people quivering about that, and I'm sure with the side event on top, it's obviously you're looking at 42 quid, aren't you? So it's a reasonable price. But when you look at the prize support, that has to be paid for somehow. So for me, I always think, I know the ticket price up front. If I'm happy to pay it and I think I'm going to have a good time, I'm happy to pay it. Yeah. And actually not having the food included was quite nice in a way, because we had a choice. But yeah, you're not the only person who said that, and I know. Again, I'm sure I know the tournament organisers are aware of it. But
if I had to choose between the food and the prize support,
every day.
Yeah,
the amount of tournaments I've been to over the years that you get a doorknob with the sprayed silver model on when you just won best in race, and they were just awesome little trophies.
You're thinking of 1200s. You got those kind of clip frames with the certificate on, and then obviously you got the trophy with it as well.
Mine's still in the boot of my car. Actually, get it out. And
then you got the trophy with it, and you think, that was an 18-player event as a side thing, 3 games. That I thought that was really good. Really, really good, because it actually meant something. Yeah, it meant it may only be 18 players and it's only 3 games, but you got something to go for. So go for it.
Yeah, I just cost. I don't know. Maybe I'm just deluded, but I don't care about cost. If I bought a ticket, I must be all right with the price. That's the way I look at it, and then so it doesn't bother me. I'll pay anything up to 50 quid. If I had to pay 50 quid for a ticket, it'd have to be Games Workshop, basically. Yeah. I think I'd go anywhere from 35 to 45, to be honest, even up to 50 if it was the right venue. If they said, we're going to have it in this hotel, you can stay on site, but it's going to have to be 50 quid because the venue, but you can stay on site, I'd pay 50, I'd pay 60, 70. It wouldn't, I don't know. It's all relative to me. So, but I might be alone there. Overall, fantastic. I just want to say a big thanks to Ben, Gareth, the other Ben, and basically the whole team that put it all on. I think it was really well run. If I needed a referee, there was a referee there. I think I only had to ask one question, and that was just over Spirit Leech, surprisingly. And I think that one thing, and I've said this to Ben himself, that I've got nothing but admiration for, is the fact they went out of their way to do something different. It's so easy for someone to pick the South Coast Pack or pick ETC or Swedish Comp and just bung it on an event. Hire a gaming centre, which is all there for you, wang it on, everyone knows 20-0 system, done. And it gets samey. And this was a really good gaming experience, I thought. And the no comp didn't make any difference to me. It didn't feel the power levels any different.
Yeah.
We've been playing with not a lot of comp for a while in the UK, and the only thing, the trend that is really, really depressing is the amount of people jumping on the Warrior bandwagon and now the Demon bandwagon, is that they're very, very strong lists. People haven't adapted in the meta, and they're just generally strong lists.
Yeah.
And at the minute they're dominating, and that's a bit disappointing. But I mean, there's nothing the TO could have done about that. They're not here to balance the armies, are they? So, overall, I had a really good time, and I'll definitely be back next year. Any final comments on the event?
Next year, I'm going to enter all the side events.
Yeah,
I'm going to play them all.
You're going to be hardcore. Yeah, I reckon they should give a prize for that.
There were, I think, about 5 people I saw them announce on Twitter that did all of them.
I know Dave Sweeten, he did a lot.
Yeah.
And I saw him at the end of the tournament, and he looked a very tired boy.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, the only reason I didn't do it is because I was with you guys, and I thought, well, being the driver, I didn't want to have to force you to be there. But I'm reasonably renowned for being up for playing lots and lots of Warhammer, so it wouldn't bother me for that.
I think if I was going to play all of them, I'd take different armies just to spice things up through the weekend. I'd take the Bretonnians for a couple, and maybe kind of the Dark Elves if I pick them up this year. Or
Wood Elves in the 500 or something like
that.
that.
Yeah, it'd be quite good fun.
Yeah, see what I can do.
Yeah. I also, if to be honest, I think as well, it'd be more fun if I wasn't driving, because I'd quite like to have a drink while playing the 500s and stuff like that. It'd be quite good fun, because then you're not as bothered, are you? So, there you go. That's next year. Good. Okay, well, I suppose we better get out of here because we've been on here a while. So, Mike, thank you very much.
Cheers,
you can reach #PoshMike on what's your Twitter?
At Mike Burgess 1, I think it is.
It is. It's if you want to chat around lizards. I think you had some really interesting thoughts on there. And I'll be interested to see how that list develops, or if you just rage quit it and go play Warriors.
Never.
Russ?
Wayne, they can get you on at Wayne Kemp 13.
At Wayne Kemp 13.
Which is good. And myself at Heelanhammer. You can check us out, www.heelanhammer.com. Our forums are on there, so if you're interested in another forum when the Warhammer forum goes down, which it has been for about the last 3 days, it's back up now, you can check us out. Just make sure if you do sign up to make sure that you send me an email with your username, because otherwise you'll get lost in spam and never activated, never ever. One thing I do want to touch on, which we talked about last episode, is your support for the 48-hour Warhammer Fantasy Wargame for charity, the Battle of Sophia. It's October 25 to 27 of this year. A group of friends are putting on a demo game marathon in aid of a local charity, Sophia's Stepping Stones, which is to help a local family raise money for an important op for their daughter. So you want to go to www.justgiving.com/Sophia's-Stepping-Stones. It's not open from the public, but they will be doing a live webcasting and tweeting all weekend. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this one works out. So it's a very, very good cause. If you have got a few quid and you want to help out some fellow wargamers, that's the place to go. Adepticon, talking of funds, nowhere near as important, obviously, as somebody's operation, but we are on a fundraising episode at the minute for funds for Adepticon. We've had a great, excellent start to it, and as such, I think we're going to be booking the hotel shortly. So it's looking like it's a goer. At the minute, we're still having to find quite a large amount of money to fully fund this. So literally anything you can do would be highly appreciated. We've got quite a few things booked in already, with people sort of buying us for dinner or buying us for a show topic or whatever, but there's tons of stuff. If whatever you can donate is appreciated, and we will be able to come to a deal with you about what you want in return. We always like to think of it as a bit of a service. Wayne's place in the doubles is still open, so if you fancy that, he's going fairly cheap at the minute, and he'd be well up for playing with you. I'm looking like I've got a partner, unless you're going to pay mega bucks, but Wayne, you're still
I'm up for grabs.
You're up for grabs, so if you fancy it, Wayne is the man. He has actually got an awesome doubles record, and that's not a lie. Long-term listeners to the show know.
Doubles is my thing.
He is a bit of a king. It might all be to do with his partner, but it doesn't matter. So
I like to think I had balance.
Yeah, definitely. And on the Adepticon funds, one of the things we had was a donation for a bit of a plug for another Warhammer podcast, which I'm always happy to do. So I want to give a big shout out to the Skull Bros Awesome podcast, which I haven't actually listened to.
I have.
You have you?
Yep. Yeah, I have.
Whoa. What?
Yeah.
You've listened to this podcast?
Yes.
Yeah? And how did you find it?
I found it very entertaining.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Is it family friendly?
You look a shock on your face.
Almost just don't believe you.
No, honestly, I've listened to the show. Only once, but I've listened to the show.
Excellent.
And I did find it entertaining, yes.
And is it family friendly,
check it out.
or do we need to give a bit of a warning? Because most Warhammer
a little bit of a warning, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not. It's probably unfamily friendly. Most Warhammer podcasts are. So just bear that in mind. Now, being that they normally do shout outs, and we have to give them. Let's say they're into their adult entertainment by the looks of it, and we were meant to be given some details of that, but I've left that out. But so from that, I gather, it's not entirely family friendly. So do check that out with caution. But I'm sure it's a great listen, as endorsed by Wayne.
Yeah,
there you go.
See?
You should just do a filler.
You don't know everything about me.
Yeah, I don't. You're a closet podcaster. And they're from the same general area in the US as the Point Hammered Boys, which you've had on the show before. So I'm sure it probably will be a bit of a laugh, and the note says that there's a similar sense of humour. So their website can be found on www.skullbrosawesome.com, and that shout out came from Bubbles, which apparently they'll know who Bubbles is. So there you go. I'll have to listen to that. I've been on a bit of a thing. I like to listen to the Odd Warhammer podcast I haven't listened to. They normally rage me with TVs on in the background or bad Skype quality or something. So I'll be interested to see how this is going. www.oddgames.co.uk. Check them out for all your magnets, games, and all the rest of the things we mentioned at the beginning of the show. Finally, the saucy section. At the minute, I'll tell you what, there's some awesome stuff on there. Russ Veal, who long-term listeners know is one of the UK's best players. He destroys at ETC every year. He's just he's an absolute animal. He has played 3 tournaments picking up demons in the last 3 weeks. Literally, I think it's 3-4 weeks, and he's ended up with first, a second, and there were some big events he's played in. So if you want to hear on how he's done it and just tips, we had a good chat, didn't we? Actually, he was talking about just generally how to get better at Warhammer and things.
And talk about matchups as well.
Yeah, matchups. There's a lot of detail in there about this show. I mean, it went on for 2 hours, so it's well worth listening to, and that's on the Saucy at the moment. So you can get that on our site, www.heelanhammer.com. Click on the Saucy tab, and you'll get in the secret section. Please remember, I say this every single show, if you sign up, make sure that you actually put your username for the forum in your sign up. Otherwise, you'll be waiting for a while. Like never, because it's a secret section of the forum that you can see. So make sure you put your forum username in. The amount of emails, I get the payment come through, and I have to email them and say, what's your forum username? And they say, oh, I'm that guy that you talk about every single week. That's right, you are that guy, so don't do it. Just put it in there. It's a little box. You just put it in there. And that's basically it. So thanks, guys, and I want to give a shout out to all of those people that did us iTunes reviews. I'm tempted to do a list actually and read you all out for a little thank you. So keep going with those. If you do enjoy the show and you do subscribe through iTunes, please leave us a review, especially if you're in the US. I want to see more of those. So Wayne, anything else before we go?
No, I think we've been pretty comprehensive on that about everything to do with the tournament. So it's been a good one.
And what about you? Hashtag Posh Mike? Anything?
No, sounds all good for me.
Good. Well, cheers for joining us. I'm sure we'll catch up with you with your journey with the Lizardmen at a later date, and see how you got
Maybe on Dark Elves in a couple of weeks.
It's only up from here, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I stuck with the scaly theme. I went and got myself a Nurgle Demon Prince. It'll be like that.
Never.
On that note, we're going to get out of here. So thanks again, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.